Chapter 9:31. Splash. There was a sound of water coming out of the bathroom. Han Dong stood in front of the dressing table in a pair of tight-fitting shorts. Staring at his slightly thin and weak self in the mirror, he brushed away the wet hair hanging in front of his eyes, installed John's spine, and then carefully adjusted the special finger glove worn on his left middle finger. To some extent, Han Dong had completely integrated into the system of Shandu and adapted to the scientific products and growth methods here. At this stage, it was quite important. Everything he did next would determine whether Han Dong could eventually sit in the position of Pharaoh. The Forbidden Area should be considered an area relatively close to the plot of the original movie, the Temple of the White Giant. If you can really go deep, you may be able to get high-quality black water or special items. At present, in the process, you may also encounter perfect aliens and some white giant who want revenge. The level of danger is very high. Miss Mary, no matter what happens, don't be separated from me. It will be very troublesome if you get lost. As Han Dong finished this sentence, there was a burst of bubbles in the bathtub overflowing with hot water, and Meridus's head slowly emerged from the water. She nodded while spitting out bubbles. It's almost time. Let's go. They arrive at the wormhole exit half an hour early. Compared to the random entrances scattered on the wall of the wormhole, the entrance was very secretive. There were professionals in charge of guarding the exit. Only those who had the permission of the Black Pyramid were allowed to leave. After showing the pass to the Forbidden Area, a staff member with 6 eyes and a body like a cockroach received Han Dong. Excuse me, which exit do you plan to go to the Forbidden Area? Is there a choice? Is there a big difference between different areas of the Forbidden Area? The initial exit is still very different. If it's your first time going to the Forbidden Area, I suggest you choose the first exit or the 5th exit. According to statistics, the survival rate of explorers entering the Forbidden Area from these 2 exits is higher. Of course, this leads to more explorers entering the Forbidden Area from these 2 exits, and the exploration information and possible items in the outer area are relatively less. However, when you reach the core area, there will be no difference. Okay, then I'll choose the 5th exit. Han Dong didn't want to court death. Without any experience, he chose the most difficult entrance. Since the core regions were all the same, it was best to explore in a safe way in the early stages. Please follow me. The distance between the different exits is quite far. A suspended transport vehicle set up in the wormhole area arrived. Its appearance was similar to a spherical egg. It was attached to the cavity track at the top of the wormhole and could carry up to 5 passengers. Not long after the 2 of them left, the Alleles team, Professor Novikov, brought 3 team members who were 2 to 3 times the size of an ordinary person. They were wrapped in thick rubber jackets. Please take us to exit number 3. The survival rate of the 3rd exit is extremely low. Are you sure you want to enter the Forbidden Zone from there? Yes. Good luck. It was as if he had already seen through the information about the Forbidden Zone. The information in Professor Novikov's hands told him that exit number 3 was the closest to the core of the Forbidden Zone. His target was the inner core temple. He could completely withstand the danger in the outer area. It was the same no matter where he entered. He just needed to save time. He must ensure that every step of the plan was carried out perfectly and without interference from anyone. He must reach the strange temple built by the White Giant. Compared to the initial positions of the other exits, the 3rd exit can save me at least an hour. As long as this step is achieved, my great project will be half completed. You 3, don't let me down. After participating in the promotion competition, the first thing I did was to register to go to a high-risk area like the Forbidden Zone. The other participants will definitely not be able to keep up with my progress. Novikov's face was full of confidence. When he reached out and patted the surface of his teammates' jackets, a burst of resonance pulse was formed. The 3 teammates whose faces were covered by the jackets immediately nodded and listened to Novikov's orders. It should be noted that the positioning of Prometheus was grade 4. The members of the Dragon City team and the other Wangdu team were all grade 4. Novikov himself was a grade 5 engineer, which meant that the level of the team members he brought was relatively low. They were more like tools than members. the perspective changed. The fifth exit corresponded to a large, fleshy opening. Its structure was similar to the opening of an intestine. The essence of God's capital was the giant sandworm hidden in the planet. The way to enter God's capital was through the sandworm's devouring. Leaving God's capital naturally corresponded to, it had to be said that this method was quite hardcore. However, the sandworm in God's capital was a living city created by humans. Its structure had changed a long time ago. The excretory intestines of the sandworm were completely separated from the transportation intestines. Moreover, special workers were arranged to clean the transportation intestines every day. It was absolutely clean inside, except for Han Dong. There were also several teams waiting in line. The number of people was no more than 3. Every one of them was speechless. They entered the forbidden zone with the mentality of death. After all, many people were forced to come here. Aptitude users who could pass the promotion competition could take up positions in various organizations and obtain a certain amount of authority and a decent salary. They could practically enjoy life in God's capital, so naturally, they wouldn't want to risk their lives in the forbidden zone. However, the slavery system in God's capital did not allow slaves to live a comfortable life. Whether it was white slaves or black slaves, they had to obey the control of God's capital. Every once in a while, a group of people would be forced to go to the forbidden zone to prove their value to the Black Pyramid. Next group, come here. When it was Han Dong's turn, a creature's tentacle applied lubricant evenly to the two of them. The transportation time is about 15 minutes. Please do not make any unnecessary movements during the transportation. After arriving at the forbidden zone, please remember the location of the exit and calculate the time. You can only return to God's capital if you reach the exit between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. Also, if you are chased by living creatures in the forbidden zone, please get rid of or kill the living creatures first. If the living creature sensor at the exit detects living creatures that are not from God's capital within 10 meters, it will not be able to open the reverse transportation channel. Okay, as the two of them laid down on the slippery intestines, the speed of their descent accelerated to 80 kilometers per hour in a short time. Putting aside the concept of intestines, the feeling of sliding down inside was quite satisfying. To ensure that the two of them arrived at the same time, Han Dong hugged Meritus tightly with one hand. Poof! As a foul smell entered their nostrils, the two of them were successfully expelled from the sandworm's body. The smell in the forbidden zone was like a pair of completely wet boots mixed with rotten meat. Even Han Dong could not stand it. However, before Han Dong could get used to the smell, a slave with a frightened expression ran toward them. It was obvious that he was one of the explorers who had come to the forbidden zone and wanted to return to God's capital. Han Dong also noticed that his body was stained with blood. Mary, there's something. Following Han Dong's reminder, a black creature that looked like a xenomorph ran out of the dark, damp cave filled with strange plants. It was bigger than the xenomorph in the movie. It was estimated to be 3 meters long. Non-living creatures detected in God's capital. The transportation channel cannot be opened. When he heard this prompt, the slave collapsed to the ground, his eyes filled with despair. Chapter 9:32. The Forbidden Area. The fifth exit corresponded to a giant underground natural cave. Although he was first attracted by the stench, the frightened escapees, and the aliens that followed, he was still shocked by the charming scenery and the exaggerated size of the cave. The distance from the ground to the top of the cave was 100 meters, quite open. At the same time, there were plants that Han Dong had never seen before growing in the cave, such as a huge tree with a mushroom cap, which could be included between the plant world and the mushroom world, and some huge flowers that could spit out confusing pollen. However, with the attack of the aliens, Han Dong's attention was diverted. Finally, there's the smell of aliens. But this is a bit too big, and the structure is slightly different from what I've seen in the movies. The back seems to be bigger and more prominent. The shell covering the whole body is quite strong, and it also has sharp blade-like claws. The black surface of the body also has some white spots. Kill it first, and then analyze it in detail. This level should not be too big of a problem. Han Dong, whose strength was unsealed by 20%, was able to perform the most basic breath judgment. The aliens were strong, but with Han Dong and Merites working together, it was not a problem for them to take on one of them. If they could not even deal with the aliens that appeared at the outermost perimeter, then this trip to the Forbidden Zone was basically a dead end. Count, let's see if you can bite through this guy's shell later. Do you still need to try this kind of garbage? Believe it or not, this count will explode with just one bite. I'm not joking with you. At present, my ability is suppressed to 20%, and there are not many tentacles that can be used. I know the strength of the isomerized blood dog. Let's see if I can bite it first. If I can't, then I will think of a way. Well, although Count was stubborn, he didn't have much confidence. The blood dog could only achieve the level of tentacle isomerization that it had just achieved a few decades ago. Speaking of tentacle isomerization, this was an advanced ability that could only be mastered by the hybrid demons. It was the ability system and the individual factor of the hybrid demons and the intuitive performance after the fusion with the tentacles. The shape and function of isomerization often directly represented the personality of the hybrid demons. Han Dong looked at his companion next to him. By the way, I still don't know what Miss Merida's tentacle isomerization is like. Was it an aggressive brain like Count? Or was it a functional brain like Lord Perugia? Previously, I couldn't use it due to the 5% restriction, but I should be able to use it now. Just as Han Dong was about to charge forward and face the xenomorph head-on, a blood-curdling scream pierced his ears. The fugitive slave flew past Han Dong's cheek and went straight in an alien's mouth. Of course, he didn't fly there voluntarily, but was thrown there. The xenomorph naturally wouldn't refuse food that was delivered to its mouth. The oval-shaped head split open from top to bottom, revealing fangs filled with acid. It bit down on the food that was flying towards it. Sizzle. The strong acidic saliva immediately corroded the food. Even if the slaves themselves were mutated and could form a hard shell structure on the surface of their bodies, they would be corroded and digested in less than 10 seconds. Furthermore, as early as the moment the poor slave was bitten, his head was penetrated by the teeth and tongue in the alien's mouth. What Meritus needed was this eating process. Like Han Dong, Meritus also had a unique vision. Toad's eye, although the grade was not as good as the magic eye, it could see the enemy's weakness through a special perspective. The xenomorph's weakness was the head, but the whole head was wrapped in a solid black shell, which was difficult to break from the outside. The best way was to let the target open its mouth and destroy it from the inside. Due to the developed motor nerves in her legs, Meritus quickly jumped and almost instantly arrived in front of the target. Some kind of translucent tentacles made of clear water was slowly condensing. Han Dong was just thinking about the problem of tentacle isomerization when Meritus showed it. It was neither a fierce dog head like Count's, nor the brain of Lord Perugia. It was a translucent, flowing water, human arm with a web structure. It easily and quickly reached into the mouth and went straight to the brain. The process of reaching out and extracting was completed in 1 second. Thump. The black xenomorph fell heavily to the ground, twitched, and died. A cluster of ellipsoidal black brain was held in Meritus's hand. It was a one-hit kill. The crisis was resolved. Miss Mary, is this your isomerization? What type is it exactly? I can't tell. Mary didn't answer immediately. Instead, she shook the webbed arm, made of translucent tentacles, threw away the xenomorph's brain, and grabbed Han Dong. Mary deliberately did this just to scare Han Dong. After all, this was the first time she showed her isomerization ability since she cooperated with human beings. Who knew? Han Dong just stood there, didn't dodge at all, and let the isomerized arm stick to his body. Only someone with absolute trust would do something like this. Meritus quickly shook her head and let her curly hair hang in front of her, covering a little blush on her face. But Han Dong's focus was on the arm. Oh, it turns out to be a functional arm structure, not only has a certain degree of attack, but also can provide comprehensive support. Han Dong's eyes lit up, staring at Meritus's arm that was attached to his chest, using it as a connector for a mobile power source. After Mary stabilized the strange emotions in her heart, she lifted her moist, curly hair and revealed a proud look. She simply explained her isomerization ability. Isomerization, source hand. This isomerization is very rare, even in Toad City. You are right. Source hand is a multifunctional tentacle arm structure. It is both offensive and can provide healing and recharging to teammates. When necessary, it can also reach into the brain of subordinates for a short period of enhancement. It is also because of the uniqueness of isomerization that I was recognized by the Bufo and was given a mid-level land deed. Very good. Han Dong was quite satisfied with the power bank's function. Then he stepped forward, intending to see if Count's fangs could bite open the xenomorph's black shell. Who knew that the dead xenomorph had already decomposed itself? After the body dies, the cells rapidly synthesize acidic substances. All that was left in front of Han Dong was a 3-meter-deep corrosive pit, without any remains of the body. What a pity. Otherwise, Han Dong would have wanted to study this kind of xenomorph that was defined as the most perfect life form by the movie Prometheus. If it was possible to eliminate the entropy isolation of different worlds, Han Dong still wanted to add some of the characteristics of the xenomorph to the ghouls in his manner. For example, a solid shell and acidic physique were very good characteristics. What an interesting world. I must complete the identity assessment as soon as possible and sit on the Pharaoh's seat, whether it is the xenomorph technology or the chief manufacturer he is. Take everything that can be taken away. Chapter 9:33. This thing is a bit powerful. We should be careful. Isomerization, source hand, was a special tentacle form that Meritus obtained through her own understanding of the water element, combined with toad tentacles and some human genes. Through the combination of the water element, the tentacles took on a translucent arm form that was immune to most attacks. Under normal circumstances, it would not be harmed. But when she grabbed the alien brain, it seemed to be going smoothly, but in reality, it was affected by a corrosive effect that even clear water could not avoid. A small part of the tentacles was slightly burned. Let's leave here quickly. There may be a certain connection between these alien life forms, so the news of the death of the alien you just killed has already spread. Before escaping, Han Dong first used the G-virus to stimulate the cells to proliferate infinitely, separating a large piece of meat and leaving it in place. Then he pulled Meritus and left quietly by sticking close to the open cave wall, trying to blend in with the environment as much as possible. Crunch, crunch, reality proved that Han Dong's conjecture was completely correct. Less than 5 minutes after the two left, dozens of aliens crawled toward the exit. They had obviously received news of their companions' deaths. The mass of proliferating meat left behind by Han Dong emitted a strong meaty aroma, which greatly attracted the group of aliens. On the other hand, Han Dong cooperated with Meritus to conceal their presence and hid behind a giant mushroom-shaped tree, successfully evading the group of aliens. Han Dong, who was hiding in the dark and secretly observing, also discovered a few mutants that emitted a strong and dangerous aura. It might be dangerous to face them head-on. No wonder the survival rate of the Forbidden Zone is so low. It turns out that there's a connection between the aliens. Once pursued by aliens, even if you can kill them, you will attract more aliens. The only way to escape danger is to kill the target in a short period of time, then quickly withdraw from the scene of the incident and hide. Concealment ability, killing ability, and thinking ability can't be lacking. While the aliens were chewing on the proliferating meat, Han Dong took the opportunity to continue going deeper. Along the way, they encountered a few aliens that were wandering around the cave. Han Dong chose to hide and go around them. After moving secretly in the cave for about an hour, he was forced to stop. The path in front of the cave had been completely blocked. The dense facehugger eggs were embedded in the cave. The walls and the ground were full of them. The only passage was between the eggs, which was less than a meter apart. According to the description in the original movie, once a living creature approached, the egg would be immediately activated. The facehugger jumped out from the inside and forcefully impregnated the host, using the host body to hatch a terrifying xenomorph. Since the facehugger eggs were being planted here on a large scale, it was only natural that someone was in charge of managing it. This is the white giant. The one in charge of looking after the egg was the race that appeared at the beginning of the movie Prometheus, the white giant. However, the white giant managing the eggs here was obviously different. The characteristics of the white giant and the alien could be found on him. His basic form, white skin, humanoid appearance, remained the same. However, he was wearing something. To be exact, it was embedded with a solid black shell. The left and right arms were also grafted with the oval-shaped head of the xenomorph, which could shoot out tongue and teeth or spit acid like the xenomorph. He also wore a biofilm helmet on his head, which allowed him to see through the situation inside the egg. The white giant walking between the eggs was carefully observing the state of each egg, as if comparing it with the facehugger hatched inside. After observing for a while, Handong found that the white giant was indeed carrying out a good selection. The white giant carried a large glass container on his back. Once a good facehugger was found, the container would be placed on the surface of the egg. By injecting a kind of oxytocin, the facehugger would be forced to leave the egg and be housed in the glass container. It seemed that the white giant living in the Forbidden Zone had completely mastered the xenomorph technology and could even live in harmony with this group of brutal life forms in a certain way. Handong roughly guessed some information. As long as we pass through this egg area, we should be at the core of the Forbidden Zone, the white giant's temple. I guess that this group of white giant must be thinking of revenge against human beings, planting insect eggs on a large scale, selecting high-quality facehuggers to bring back to the temple, and then injecting them with high-quality hosts. The combination of good and good will naturally produce a more powerful xenomorph. After such large-scale planting, cultivation, and selection, it will gradually accumulate into a xenomorph army. Once it reaches a large enough scale, it will launch an attack on Shandu. Meridis asked softly from the side. By the way, who did they put the facehuggers on to produce the xenomorph? Explorers from the outside, or perhaps they themselves? Meridis also felt uncomfortable when she thought that such a disgusting thing might hold her head and inject disgusting foreign objects into her body. After all, she could only exert the strength of a newborn now, and she would be affected if she was not careful. Compared to Handong, the reaction was completely different. When he saw such a beautiful scene of planting creatures, Handong's eyes lit up and he was full of excitement. He even imagined planting facehugger eggs in his manor. By the way, in the movie Alien, the xenomorph was produced by injecting mammals. In the movie, humans, dogs, white giant, predator, and so on were all injected with facehuggers and produced xenomorph with corresponding characteristics. What if I bring these facehuggers back to my manor and fuse them with ghouls? Of course, first, I will let Dr. Swollen cultivate the eggs, only the best quality facehuggers. I believe that Dr. Swollen and Professor West will be very interested. This forbidden area is the only relic of the white giant. I must preserve it. While Handong was in a state of excited thinking, Meridis asked softly, Nicholas, are you going to explore it completely, or are you just going to earn points for it? If it's the latter, we could just take something or xenomorph samples back. There's no need to continue taking risks. I have a feeling that we will be in danger if we go deeper. Handong's answer was unusually firm. Continue to go deeper. And I guess that the thing that the High Priest wants me to pay attention to must exist in the depths of the forbidden area, which is in the Temple of the White Giant. Let's explore deeper. Maybe we can use the life forms here. Use? What do you want to do? I want to be a pharaoh at the other end of the cave, entrance number 3, the starting point of the exploration with the highest mortality rate. There were a lot of poisonous plants here. The xenomorphs in this area also showed strange postures. Some even had pustules on the surface of their bodies and could even throw explosive sarcomas that were toxic and corrosive. However, large numbers of xenomorphs had died in front of Professor Novikov. 3 big teammates wearing rubber coats seemed to be designed as xenomorph killers. Any xenomorphs that were found could be quickly killed. One of them was still holding a xenomorph whose brain was completely exposed. The acid-resistant gloves allowed them to ignore the xenomorph's body fluids. Sure enough, it's the same as the information. No matter what kind of xenomorph, its weakness is the same. This kind of chitin shell can be quickly degraded by actinomycetes, and it can be easily solved by destroying the brain with brute force. With Professor Novikov's killing spree, there were fewer and fewer xenomorphs that came to find them. With his special lungs, he sniffed the flow of substances in the air and came to the front of the White Giant's temple by killing them head-on. Chapter 9:34. How do we get there? According to what you said, once the eggs sense living things around them, they will quickly hatch into facehuggers and look for a host. There is no shelter in the planting area, and the distance between the eggs is less than 1 meter. There are also gardeners with unknown danger patrolling between the eggs. The biofilm mask on the gardeners' heads should be able to improve their vision. We can't hide from them with our current stealth methods. Let me think about it. Han Dong had come up with a lot of plans in his mind, but all of them had certain risks. First, he could use the sound to attract the gardener's attention, get the gardener's cells through some means, and then disguise himself as the gardener's with the imitation ability of the faceless head. This way, he could avoid activating the facehuggers and crossing the planting area. But there was one thing he was not sure about. Maybe the alien armor on the gardeners would prevent them from being recognized and attacked by the facehuggers. Just imitating the body might not work. Second, just as Han Dong was thinking about the plan, from the depths of the open passageway came a series of strange, sharp, and ear-piercing cries. It seemed to be the alarm that the temple was being invaded. The gardeners all showed a frightened expression. They immediately put down their work and rushed back to the temple. Even some of the aliens wandering around the periphery were driven by the screams and quickly crawled back to their nests. What is this? Has a team invaded the White Giant Temple? It seems that they broke through by force. According to my current understanding of Shindu, the probability of them being locals is very small. Most of the locals were forced to come here and would not explore the temple area at all. It is most likely a human team. First of all, Tesla and his team who are still under the influence of fear can be eliminated. Dragon City team or a strange team led by a level 5 engineer. No matter who it is, they're a great help. Let's go. Ow. I don't want to be held by the disgusting things in the eggs. Meritus was confident that she could get rid of some of the facehuggers, but there were thousands of facehugger eggs in the cave. If all of them were activated, they would be in danger. Let me try first. The genes of this alien life form should not be difficult to imitate. When he killed the aliens earlier, Han Dong got a small part of the cells. Imitate. Under the control of the faceless head, the body began to imitate the genetic sequence of the aliens. Elementary stem cell differentiation. The blood was changed into a light green liquid with a strong acidic nature. A black shell formed on the surface of the skin. John's spine also helped in the process, forming a heavy black bone tail. However, the skeleton in Han Dong's body did not change. It still maintained its human form and face. After all, his ability was limited, and his disguise wasn't perfect. However, there were all kinds of strange aliens in the cave. As long as Han Dong could emit the aura of an alien normally, the facehugger would be able to recognize him. How do I get there? Meritus couldn't transform. It's simple. Han Dong grabbed Meritus by the waist and carried her on his shoulder. It was believed that the aliens would not completely kill the slaves who broke into this place. Most of them would choose to capture them alive and bring them back to the temple to be used as pregnant bodies. Han Dong first tried to approach the outermost egg. The flesh on the surface showed some signs of movement, but it soon calmed down. The disguise was successful. Just like that, Han Dong swaggered through the unguarded planting area, staring at the egg field at a close distance. His desire to move it back to the manor grew stronger. After passing through the planting area of the facehugger eggs, the terrain of the entire cave sank. Slowly, Han Dong finally came to the core of the forbidden area. Looking along the wall, there were a total of 6 cave passages that led here, corresponding to the 6 exits of the wormhole in Shundu. Right in front was the White Giant Temple, the last remaining territory after being devoured by humans. It corresponded to an avant-garde, multi-story ring-shaped building built with an unknown white material. It was like the ribbed structure of the human body. Grand and huge. Is this the temple? Judging from the size of the temple, it should be more than enough to accommodate 100,000 aliens. While Han Dong was thinking, suddenly, an inexplicable spiritual shock swept through Han Dong's body. With 20% of his ability removed, Han Dong faintly felt that there might be such a terrifying existence in this temple. It directly caused the black sand on the surface of his left arm to flow, and the sacred blood in his right arm also showed a warming reaction. Could it be that there is a mythical substance in this white giant temple? Or a mythical life? The white giant that was forced to hide here was not only cultivating the alien army, but also some kind of special existence, a god-level life that could help them complete their revenge and take back the planet. No wonder the Black Pyramid sealed the information and did not let the explorers know in advance. Even if there were a lot of contribution rewards, the slaves would not want to go here. Meritus, the atavistic body that had spied on the door of truth, naturally felt the aura from the temple, and a certain amount of fear arose in her heart. Do we still have to go in? This feeling is very dangerous. Han Dong looked at the other side of the entrance of the temple. Through the telescopic function of Little Magic Eye, he could clearly see the scattered bodies of the aliens. In the past, I probably would not take this risk. But according to the current speculation, there is currently a human team that has attacked the temple from the front. According to my observation, there is no reckless captain in the human team that came to the world of Prometheus. They must have a deeper understanding of the forbidden area in advance if they chose to attack from the front. They want to reach the depths of the temple in the shortest time possible to obtain a decisive item. We have to go in, otherwise the human team will widen the gap, and then it will be difficult to catch up. Okay, which way should we go? This kind of rib structure had entrances on both sides of the rib. The right entrance had been forcibly broken by a team, and the left entrance was in a normal state. According to Han Dong's imitation of the aliens, they should be able to recognize and enter. The left side is quieter, so let's go to the left. Even if this human team came prepared, it will take a certain amount of time to completely penetrate such a huge temple. Let them create a bigger commotion, and it will be easier for us to enter. It is better to wait until later. They are prepared to deal with the aliens, but not enough to deal with us. I want to secretly see the real purpose of this team coming to the temple. What exactly do they want from this place? It would be best if we could intercept them midway. Thinking of this, Han Dong showed the unique sharp teeth of the aliens, and acidic saliva kept dripping. Carrying Meritus, he quickly came to the left entrance. The biological door automatically recognized the identity of the person approaching and allowed Han Dong to enter. Unexpectedly, as soon as he entered the door, he bumped into a white giant in an alien battlesuit. It looked at Han Dong with its black gem-like eyes and then said a series of incomprehensible words. Fortunately, Han Dong also got the corresponding language system when he imitated the aliens. Currently, the right chord area is being invaded. Bring the humans you captured to the left chord area, third rib, host cold storage room. Han Dong did not reply and quickly carried Meritus to the third rib. Chapter 9:35. On the other side of the passage, Professor Novikov successfully reached the inside of the temple with a frontal assault. The reason why he used such a reckless frontal assault was because of Novikov's personal characteristics. He majored in biology and had special abilities in mental biotechnology. His adaptability and variability were at the top. He could understand the same kind of target by killing the target, and at the same time, he could constantly strengthen himself. When Novikov first arrived at the Forbidden Area, his speed of killing enemies was relatively slow, but as he continued to kill aliens, his speed became faster and faster. Furthermore, unlike Han Dong, he was not the only one. Novikov could be said to not refuse. No matter what the quality of the black water was, he would actively absorb it, and he could also absorb the characteristics of various mutant monsters and display them. Even so, due to the 20% ability restriction, it was not enough for Novikov to be tyrannical in the forbidden area. Currently, temple, right chord, first rib. Because Novikov killed his way into the temple, he directly attracted the attention of a powerful existence in the depths of the temple. He no longer let the white giant or ordinary aliens go to their deaths. Instead, he sent a crown prince alien that had been optimized and cultivated for dozens of generations to solve the target. This kind of alien belonged to the true elites of the temple. Using a high-quality white giant as a host, combined with the excellent human genes, a pure white alien was cultivated through generations. Its physique was moderate, about 2 meters. The pure white hard shell was stronger and more adaptable than the ordinary black shell. Its physical functions were far superior to ordinary aliens, and it had a perfect thinking ability, a very high IQ, a super fast learning ability, and could control a variety of external equipment. Such a pure alien elite was the real purpose of Novikov's commotion. It consumed a lot of stamina at the cost of sacrificing a teammate. He had successfully killed a pure white xenomorph with a crown on its head and an ion cutter blade on its back. Wow, what a pure product. It didn't take much effort to get it. Novikov didn't feel sad at all about the death of his teammate. Or rather, his teammate was destined to be sacrificed at a critical stage at the moment of creation. Go eat this thing's DNA and copy it quickly. Listen to Novikov's orders. The other 2 surviving teammates opened their big mouths and madly gnawed on the white alien lying on the ground. Due to the intensity of the battle, the rubber jacket on his teammate was almost torn apart, revealing a muscular body with golden proportions. These teammates that followed Novikov into the Destiny realm weren't real humans. Instead, it was the androids created by the Mendel Biotechnology Company. These androids could be recognized by the Destiny realm and undergo the same Destiny test. The androids that had eaten the white alien immediately replicated it in their bodies. First, a large number of white spots appeared on their skin and spread quickly, dyeing their dark gray skin into a pure white color. Crack, 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 its back expanded and protruded, and its tail grew out. Nearly 80% of the genetic combination had occurred in a short period of time. The appearance of the android was almost no different from the white alien that had just been killed. By the time the next elite team of the temple found this place, Novikov and his teammates had disappeared, leaving only a big hole at the top. With the DNA of the white alien, they could freely walk through the temple of the white giant. Their identity authority allowed them to reach deep areas. Professor Novikov, with a stooped body, didn't change much in form, but he also exuded the aura of an alien. His running speed in a stooped state was no slower than his 2 teammates. If you look carefully, you will find that his lower body length has appendages to assist in running. Novikov had a sinister smile on his face. It seemed that he was only a few steps away from achieving his goal. Because the white alien was killed, the intruders disappeared, and the temple entered a state of alert. Left string area. Han Dong followed the instructions to the host's cold storage room on the 3rd rib. During this period, he also roughly figured out the structure of the temple. The so-called rib represented the floor. There is only one way to get to the different floors, the spine elevator in the center of the temple. When using the elevator, the relevant identity needed to be verified. Han Dong's alien disguise belonged to the lowest level and could only move on the 1st floor. Who knew that because the temple entered a state of alert, various restrictions were relaxed. Even low-level aliens could move on all floors and search for traces of intruders. As long as they could provide information about the intruders, they would get extraordinary rewards. I really have to thank the invasion team. Otherwise, it would be really inconvenient for me. The spine elevator was about 200 square meters, and the power system was quite powerful. Han Dong, carrying Meritus, sat in the elevator with several white giants at the same time. Among them, A white giant had an extraordinary identity. It seemed to be a war commander. It sat on the back of a canine alien and was equipped with quite advanced biological equipment. Canine alien, as the name implied, was a combination of face-huggers and dogs. It was a special species, mostly used for reconnaissance and riding. It had a higher sense of smell than the average alien. At present, this alien dog put its nose close to Han Dong and seemed to smell a smell that did not belong to aliens. At the critical moment, a layer of water invisible to the naked, I covered the dog's nose and blocked its sense of smell. Soon, it lost interest in Han Dong and turned its head away. Han Dong was so scared that he started sweating profusely. In a situation where the intruders were missing and the temple was on high alert, if Han Dong's identity was exposed, he would naturally be labeled as an intruder. He would face an endless alien army with almost no way to survive. They arrived at the third floor. Han Dong learned from other aliens, made a hissing sound, and quickly went to the host's cold room. "Miss Mary, we were almost discovered just now. Sure enough, we can't completely trust the camouflage ability. Next, we have to think of other ways to continue to go deeper into the temple. Or we can wait in the host's cold room for a while. When the intruders appear again and attract the attention of the temple, we can secretly move. Well, let's wait." Host's cold room, devices similar to hibernation cabins were closely arranged around the room, and there was an operation desk in the center. How can there be so many humans? There are at least 100 people in this cold room alone, not to mention that there are many similar cold rooms in other areas of the third floor. There shouldn't be so many explorers, right? Could it be? Han Dong imagined a bad scene. It's just a movie setting, nothing to worry about. "Miss Mary, let's rest in the cabin for a while." Okay. At this moment, a noise came from the top of the room. Boom. Two strange-looking white monsters and a stooped middle-aged man landed at the same time. So many prototypes. Let's rest here for a while. Chapter 9:36. When I heard the noise from the ceiling and smelled a strange smell, the first thing Han Dong did was to drag Mary into the refrigerated cabin that could accommodate 2 people. They blocked the entrance of the air conditioner and the sleep-inducing hormone and hid inside quietly. Clang! A sturdy iron fence was broken and fell. 3 figures quickly descended from the ventilation duct at the top of the room. First, 2 gigantic aberrations with crowns on their heads descended. Then, a middle-aged man with a stooped body also landed in the room. Han Dong immediately recognized the identity of this person. Novikov. But Novikov is even worse. We must pay more attention to this person. He came here as a grade 5 engineer. He must have a personal agenda. For a moment, the words of Monk Gu Su echoed in Han Dong's mind. As early as when he met this person in the desert ruins, Han Dong had already smelled a strange danger in advance. When Han Dong successfully held Miss Eva hostage, this person rushed in from the periphery and directly caused Han Dong's back to be covered in cold sweat. It was all thanks to Meritus's appearance that the pressure was relieved. Han Dong had already designated this person as the most dangerous participant in his heart. Strange, I remember that this guy's teammates should be 3 strong humans wearing rubber jackets. How did they become 2 pure white aliens? And these aliens are obviously much more advanced than the black aliens I encountered. Could it be that this guy chose to invade the temple from the front on purpose to obtain the genes of the advanced aliens? Once he obtained the high-quality genes, he would be able to freely pass through the temple. There would be no need to continue to attack from the front, which led to the sudden disappearance. This guy came here from the beginning with the purpose of obtaining a key item in the White Giant Temple. It might be the mythical aura that I first sensed. Thinking about it, he used the high-end cards of fate and specifically chose Prometheus. He had already prepared everything. I hope he doesn't notice me and Mary. Our only advantage is that we haven't been discovered. Once a conflict occurs, the advantage will all be on Novikov's side. Nervous. It had been a long time since Han Dong had been so nervous. Once discovered, a conflict would be unavoidable. More importantly, the fully armed white giant and the alien army in the temple would immediately rush over. Novikov could escape as easily as before. On the other hand, Han Dong's side was in trouble. He would be labeled as the one who had killed a large number of aberrations and the white giant, and would be hunted down from all sides. Damn it! If he was in peak condition, combined with the atavistic physique, Meritis's spatial binding ability, I'll release Togu and Nico. It should be able to instantly kill the target. Now that my head is sealed, Togu and Nico can't contact each other at all. Thinking of this, Han Dong suddenly made an outrageous request. Miss Mary, you should be able to use your Toad Devour ability, right? Can you swallow me and store me in your stomach? Huh? What are you going to do? A fifth-order engineer who specializes in bioengineering. To some extent, he is similar to me. For biological researchers like us, he observes the details of living creatures very carefully and pursues perfection. He won't let go of any problem. We had a conflict with him on the alien ruins, so he should have remembered our appearance, characteristics, and aura. Only in this way can we reduce the probability of being discovered. Okay, after a long period of cooperation, Meritis was already very confident in Han Dong's decision. Gulp. Devour was indeed the signature ability of the Toad-type hybrid demon. Even if Meritis only had the strength of a newborn hybrid demon, it was still easy for her to swallow. Han Dong's vision turned dark. Although the spatial ability was not displayed outside the body, it was still present inside the body. Otherwise, a woman like Meritis, who was slightly fleshy and had a good figure, would not be able to swallow a man. This is inside Miss Mary's body. Does the digestive tract have the ability to shrink space? It's really strange, and the way to digest food is not only by gastric juices, but also by tearing space and directly tearing the swallowed object into pieces. Once swallowed, unless one is good at spatial ability, there is basically no way to survive. Han Dong followed the digestive tract to the stomach area. It was similar to a pale pink cave with a little acid stain on ground. At this time, a mottled toad jumped out of the stomach and said, "This is the space inside my body, corresponding to the stomach. You stay here. I will try my best to avoid exposing my identity." Miss Mary, can you connect my senses to the outside of my body? Maybe I can hear some of this guy's plans. Okay. As the mottled toad landed on Han Dong's head, their senses connected. At present, Novikov was leading 2 bionic aliens and was checking the host cold room to make sure there were no potential threats here, so he could rest here for a while. The frontal attack consumed a lot of his stamina. Looking at the large number of human hosts frozen here, Novikov could not help but sigh. It seems Shundu deliberately sent good quality slaves here. The people in power in Shundu knew very well that the essence of the alien technology was in the hands of this group of aliens. Therefore, when they counterattacked, they deliberately left a group of high IQ white giant alive and kept this temple. Just like thousands of years ago, the white giant went to Earth and took away a group of high IQ ancient Egyptians. What an interesting cycle of cause and effect. They indirectly used this place as a training ground for aliens in Shundu, hoping that one day this group of aliens can cultivate a divinity alien ancestor. And this thing is also what I want, a perfect life form with divinity. With this thing, I can absorb the power of the world and achieve the most perfect transformation. At this time, the alien teammates smelled something different from the others. Novikov immediately rushed over. Staring at the woman in the cold room, the details of her face immediately matched with the ancestral body of the hybrid demon team. However, there was a slight difference in the aura. In addition, the woman's abdomen bulged and wriggled slightly, as if she was pregnant. No matter how Novikov thought about it, the ancestral body should not appear here. After all, they finished the promotion competition together, and Novikov had almost no gap. He only rested for 2 days and immediately rushed to the Forbidden Zone. Although no matter how he thought about it, the person in the cold room could not be the ancestral body. But Novikov wanted to avoid all threats that might hinder his plan. A sharp thorn formed in his palm and aimed at the woman's head, just as he was about to pierce it. Ka, 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 the woman's chest exploded and the head of a baby alien drilled out from inside, hissing loudly. "Let's go." Novikov decisively gave up the kill, turned around, and left with his teammates through the ventilation duct. There was a mental connection between the aliens. Even if a newborn alien was killed, other aliens may be aware. Seeing Novikov leave, Han Dong finally breathed a sigh of relief. At the critical moment, it was Han Dong in the body that imitated the scene of the alien breaking out of the cavity and being reborn. Aberrations with divinity. Is this your goal? Professor Novikov. Chapter 9:37. It hurts. In order to create a sense of realism, Han Dong also let Meritus withdraw the body's regeneration ability, causing the ribs to almost burst, and the body was also in a mess. The final recovery was also handed over to Mary to complete, enduring the pain alone. Staring at Meritus, sitting alone on the surface of the refrigerated cabin. To some extent, there was almost no difference with humans. Of course, this was limited to staying with Han Dong. Seeing that Mary could deal with the injury by herself, Han Dong did not help, but thought about what to do next. Basically, this guy's ultimate goal is the divine life in the temple, which is also the power of divinity that I felt standing outside the temple. He also has the ability of camouflage, and the two teammates have changed into a kind of advanced alien. As long as his physical strength is fully recovered, Novikov's next step is to go to the core area of the temple. This guy seems to know Shindu, including this white giant temple like the back of his hand. Maybe he has cleared the movie related to Alien before and has already established a connection with this place. If he really gets a divinity alien creation, then this time the Destiny world is basically no fun. If we want to stop this guy, there's only one chance. We still have an advantage. At this time, Meritus moved the last rib back to its original position with her bare hands. Meritus, just now those two white aliens, can you deal with them alone? Of course, but there's no way to guarantee that I can completely kill them. It's good that you can deal with them. Soon we may face them. At that time, I will be responsible for dealing with Novikov, although there is a difference of 3 levels between him and me, but under the 20% limit, the level gap is greatly reduced. He is ready to deal with the white giant temple, but he is not ready to deal with us. When do you plan to do it? What if the monsters in the temple attack us during the time? Rest assured, as long as we appear in the right place at the right time, the things in the temple will not treat us as enemies. What do you mean? When Han Dong shared his analysis and thoughts, Meritus was also surprised. You've been thinking like this since the beginning? The position of Pharaoh isn't that easy to sit on. Otherwise, High Priest Duan Yuan's eyes wouldn't be filled with unwillingness that had accumulated for decades. According to the records in the Pyramid Library, this Pharaoh had been in power for 100 years. According to the system in the fairies' capital, those with the ability could sit in the corresponding position. Over the years, countless participants of fate had come to this place, but none of them had been able to shake the Pharaoh's position. The leader of the Hell Knights, Malone, had long been in contact with Hell. In order to sit on the position of the King of Hell, he had disappeared from the world for decades. It was almost impossible to obtain the position of Pharaoh through conventional means. You have to come up with extraordinary methods that the other participants can't even think of or achieve. Only then can you sit in that position. With Han Dong's ambitious speech, Meritus felt a strange emotion in her heart. It's not that simple. Anyway, let me make it clear, I won't do anything that's too dangerous. Our main goal is to find a tool that can suppress Toad's shackles of exhaustion. Only by reaching the depths can we obtain the corresponding tool. If we let Novikov achieve his goal, not only will we not obtain anything, we might even die here. Let's go. Han Dong pointed to the ventilation pipe that Novikov had broken open and followed the remnant scent in the pipe. Temple of the White Giant, 9th Rib. This was the highest area in the temple that most of the staff were allowed to pass through, and the highest level that the spine lift could reach. Further up, one would pass through the rib layer and arrive at the core of the temple, the skull layer. The White Giant's elder and chief research officer were inside. Their most advanced technology was hidden inside, and it was a special biological technology that only the White Giant could control and use. If one wanted to go to the next level, they had to verify their identity. Even the bionics, who perfectly imitated the White Giant, were powerless. Only the authorized White Giant Elder had the special key to open the skull layer. A sound came from a storage room on the ninth rib. Novikov, who was very familiar with the structure of the temple, smoothly arrived at this level along the maze-like ventilation pipes. Since Novikov disappeared on the first level, most of the humans were searching in the middle and lower levels. Moreover, the biological door set in the skull layer could not be opened without a key. Even if one happened to enter, they would only be walking into a trap. The most advanced White Giant and top cultivated bodies were inside, and they could kill the intruder in an instant. However, Novikov, on the other hand, looked confident. In front of him was a biological bone door that emitted bursts of green light, and it emitted an almost endless vitality. Once this door was hit, a large number of fleshy defensive layers would grow in the corresponding position to block the next impact. It could be said that the more one attacked, the harder and thicker it became. Only by bursting out an attack that was far harder than the hardness of the door body in an instant could it be possible to break through this door. With limited ability, even Novikov, a fifth-order engineer, could not break it, but a key similar to a spine was slowly pulled out from Novikov's mouth. The key, which was 1 meter long, was inserted directly from the center of the door body. Click! The door to the skull layer opened. The stairs that appeared in front of him were bone pieces suspended in the air through nerve threads. Handong's guess was right. The reason why Novikov was so familiar with everything about Prometheus was that he had cleared Alien, and it was a chain event. He found the ruins of the White Giant, learned the information on this planet through the inscriptions and hidden missions, and even got the recognition of a White Giant Elder. That was how the spinal key came about. Stepping on the stairs leading to the temple, Novikov led the two alien teammates to the highest hall in the skull layer. It was the place where the White Giant Elders discussed in a council. There were 36 rows of bone seats up to 100 meters in height around them. A huge white giant wearing white alien armor was sitting in their respective seats. Directly in front of them was the most famous giant head sculpture in the movie Prometheus. Because Novikov took out the spinal key that only the elders had, the current White Giant Elders were having a heated discussion. At this time, Novikov adjusted his vocal cords and spoke a unique language of the White Giant. I inherited the will of the White Giant Elder and came here from thousands of miles away just to accept your final creation. As soon as this remark came out, the elders' discussion became even more intense. They were unwilling to hand over the divine creation that they had painstakingly cultivated. This was the only thing they could rely on to recapture Shandu. But the White Giant clan's internal regulations stated that the highest will inherited by Novikov had the right to accept their creation. At this moment, the same White Giant language came from the entrance of the temple, and Novikov felt that he had heard it somewhere before. He is just a world traveler. The divine creation is the only pillar you use to recapture your territory. There is no need to give it to passerby. Chapter 9:38. The White Giant's Temple. The exterior of the building was a human skeleton structure, ribs and skull, without the arms. It looked simple, but it required an extremely complex energy supply network to maintain the operation of such a biological building. The ventilation duct that Novikov passed through is actually the energy network hidden inside the temple. In such a labyrinthine channel, if one was not careful, he would be hit by the energy torrent, which would cause great damage to the body. But Novikov was able to skillfully avoid all the forks and arrived at the 9th rib in the shortest correct way. Following the scent left in the passage, Han Dong, who followed closely behind, was also able to confirm that Novikov had a deep relationship with the White Giant. Basically, this guy must have come into contact with the important relics left by the White Giant in the previous Fate events and obtained some inheritance, benefiting a lot. But Novikov did not have a friendly relationship with the white giant race. Otherwise, he would not have to come in directly. He might have picked up the alien inheritance or snatched it by force. On the other hand, this guy held a bargaining chip in his hand and came directly to the top floor of the temple, probably to negotiate with a white giant elder. The most likely is that he experienced the fate events of the Alien series, which took place after Prometheus. This guy should have obtained some ID in the white giant's relics and detailed information about this Libra planet. It could even be a linked event in the Fate realm. Just like the chain event, like the Joker's resurrection. Linked events involve more and more series, but are not as closely connected as a chain event. The main subject and main storyline involved in different events are not necessarily the same, but the information and key items obtained are the same. This would explain why Novikov is so familiar with this place. Soon, Han Dong officially arrived at the 9th rib. To ensure that he was not discovered during the following period, Han Dong kept a relatively long distance. When Han Dong had just descended from the ventilation duct, he already heard the sound of bones being unlocked from afar. When he carefully arrived at the only staircase leading to the skull stratum temple, the biomass door was already closed. Han Dong felt a headache coming on as he sensed the rich vitality seeping out from the door. This kind of door can't be forcefully broken open. Even if all the restrictions are lifted, it will still take a lot of effort. Just as Han Dong, who was standing in front of the door, was hesitating, another wave of divinity struck. This time, Han Dong was not standing outside the temple, but in front of the door leading to the top floor. The divinity's senses were quite clear. The resonance between the divinities even directly caused Han Dong's arms to show abnormalities. Through the black sand, the image of Anubis slowly appeared on the back of his left hand. On the wrist of his right arm, there was a pattern of a holy sword stitched together by blood vessels. However, on the creatures directly in front of him, a palm-shaped groove appeared on their own initiative, as if they wanted Han Dong to place his palm on it. But he could only place it on one creature. It seems that the divine existence in this temple has long discovered me and gave me the opportunity to come here. But I need to make a choice. If I make the wrong choice, I will likely be targeted as an enemy by the temple, and I won't be able to leave alive. Once I make the right choice, I will be qualified to go to the temple. Should I use the power of Anubis that originated from the ancient Egyptian gods, or should I use the power of the holy blood obtained from the Hall family, whose source is unknown for the time being? Han Dong first stretched out his right arm in front of him. The emblem of the holy sword was unusually dazzling. Preliminary analysis showed that Anubis was related to ancient Egypt, and the ancient Egyptians completely counterattacked the white giant in the process of development. If he used this power, it was very likely that he would be hostile to the white giant. Just as his right palm was about to reach, Han Dong suddenly stopped. No, why did you give me a chance? Obviously, this divine creation saw hope in me. What hope? Hope that the power of the holy blood can help them kill all the residents of Luoyang? That's not it. At least with my current strength, I won't be able to cause too much of a commotion in Luoyang. The reason why you gave me a chance is because I have the potential to overthrow the current ruling pharaohs. It comes from the ancient Egyptian gods. He changed his train of thought. The mummy's arm was pressed against his palm. Waves of death power spread out from his palm, and the plasmodium of life completely disintegrated. A staircase formed by hanging bone fragments was revealed. It was the only path leading to the temple. The music of All Gods Enter the Hall of Valhalla was played by the nerve threads on both sides. It seemed to be welcoming Han Dong's arrival. When Han Dong stepped on the staircase, a black spiral symbol that symbolized aliens appeared between his eyebrows. The corresponding system prompt also appeared. You have been recognized by God of Aliens, Deacon. You have obtained certain privileges, and your reputation with related organizations has changed. You are allowed to participate in related organizations' events. The details are as follows. Privileges. Recognition of the God of Aliens allows you to move freely in the forbidden area. You will not activate the facehugger eggs, and you will not be attacked by aliens. You are allowed to enter the temple under certain circumstances. Reputation, white giant, hostile, neutral. Triggered organization mission, defend the Hall of Valhalla. Requirements. As the spokesperson of the god of aliens, go to the skull layer of the white giant temple and defeat the intruder who attempts to borrow the will of the white giant. Reward. Greatly increase the reputation value of the white giant organization and increase the intimacy of the god of aliens. The sudden identity was beyond Han Dong's expectations. Listening to the grand and sonorous song echoing in his ears, Han Dong just smiled and stepped into the highest temple of the alien race with his head held high, since he was recognized by the god of aliens. Han Dong had the capital to confront Novikov. He's just a world traveler. The divine creation is the only pillar you use to take back your territory. There's no need to give it to a passerby. You. Novikov suddenly turned his head and stared at the alien mark reflected on Han Dong's forehead. He recalled the woman he just saw in the host's cryogenic chamber. The uneasiness that had been hovering in his heart was infinitely magnified. He was just one step away from achieving the ultimate goal of this event. Such an important moment was disrupted. Han Dong continued, I entered the temple as the spokesperson of the god of aliens, and the decree of the god of aliens has been conveyed to me. If you can defeat me in front of many elders and in the temple, it means that you have the qualification to take away the divine creation. When he heard this, Novikov's uneasiness immediately disappeared. Oh, come on. In his eyes, Nicholas was just a grade 2 knight. The only difficult thing to deal with was the atavistic hybrid demon, but the ability limitation narrowed the gap to almost nothing. Moreover, Novikov's 2 teammates had perfectly imitated the royal alien. How could he miss such an opportunity to eliminate all risks at once? Chapter 9, 39. Han Dong used the name of the god of aliens to test Novikov's ability. This did not violate the rules of the White Giant, and it was also in line with the requirements of the temple. Staring at the alien mark that appeared on Han Dong's head, the elders of the White Giant also acquiesced to Han Dong's assessment suggestion, and most of the elders hoped that Han Dong would win. Such divine creations were their only hope in fighting against the humans. With the towering bone pillars of the 36 paths as the boundary, under the gaze of the elders of the White Giant, a battle with the theme of assessment broke out. I didn't expect that it was really you guys who were in the freezer before. Before the battle, I have a question. Why did you guys come to the forbidden area so quickly? Did you guys come into contact with aliens in advance like me? No, we just came to the forbidden area by chance. Originally, we were still worried about how to go deep into the cave, but we didn't expect Professor Novikov to start a massacre. Because of your help, Professor, we saved a lot of trouble. I'm very grateful to you for this. Listening to Han Dong's answer, Novikov sneered. No wonder you were besieged in the desert ruins. When you were almost defeated, you could still come up with a countermeasure and use Eva as a breakthrough to instantly suppress them. You don't act like a fallen knight who has fallen into lust and evil thoughts at all. The atavistic physique that came with you also seems to be on equal footing with you. Who are you? A new type of human cultivated by the old king? Holy City, Nointerna, an official member of the Secret Word Knights. In addition to work, I also like to farm and read books in the manor. Ha! I like to see what secrets are hidden in your body. Let's begin. The battle began. Novikov's gaze immediately shifted from Han Dong to atavistic physique, Meritus. In his opinion, although Han Dong was a bit strange, he was definitely not as threatening as the atavistic physique. All of a sudden, Meritus made her move. She bypassed Han Dong and attacked directly. The words atavistic physique still held a lot of weight in Novikov's heart. From what he knew, he had to wait until the end of this incident and achieve a breakthrough as a Tier 5 engineer before he could truly fight against the atavistic physique. He actually attacked us directly. What is he trying to do? Novikov was a little apprehensive and chose to defend himself. A finger was stretched out in front of him. The light red biofilm layer spread out from the tip of his finger, similar to a special shield. Who knew that Meridus's target was not him at all? Whoosh! Two unusually nimble tongues shot out and targeted the two teammates beside Novikov. The accuracy and speed of the tongue were extremely high, and it accurately wrapped around the neck. The moment he confirmed that it was tightly wound, the accumulated power between his legs exploded in an instant. Boom! Two deep footprints were left on the sturdy ground of the temple. With a super jump, the two xenomorphs left the area. He left the main battlefield to the two of them. Novikov was stunned for a moment. He could not understand the situation in front of him. No matter how he looked at it, Nicholas should have joined forces with the atavistic physique to deal with him. What did he mean now? Did he want to die? Even if the ability suppression reduced the level gap between the two, the increase provided by the talent tree was different. Moreover, in terms of combat experience, Novikov was far superior to a young knight. Even if it was a person-to-person, he had unique killing experience. What are you doing? Why did you choose to do this? Have you fought with a Tier 5 knight in the Holy City? No. So, you intend to use all your strength to hold me back and let the atavistic physique quickly finish off my two teammates. Then, the team will attack from the front and back, right? Novikov was a person who liked to think and analyze. Even if the battle had already begun, he wanted to analyze the situation in front of him clearly. That must be what you think. However, you seem to have underestimated the teammates I brought. Their role is not as simple as pulling down the level of the team. They are robots that gather the highest scientific concepts of the Mendel Company. Now, they have absorbed and completely assimilated the genes of the royal alien. No matter how powerful the atavistic physique is, it is difficult to defeat them quickly when the ability is limited. It is even more impossible to kill them. I really don't understand. You clearly laid a good chess game before. Why did you suddenly make such a bad move? After listening to Novikov's long speech, Han Dong replied flatly, "That's right. Do you have to conduct a rigorous analysis, like an experiment? Have you ever thought about the lack of data in your hands? It's very simple. I am the chief examiner chosen by the alien god, and the test target is you. I just asked Meridus to eliminate the interference factors around you so that I can conduct a one-on-one assessment on you." "Ha! You are really... Ahaha!" Novikov's sarcastic laughter was suddenly overshadowed by a burst of crazy laughter. Han Dong, who was standing opposite him, laughed, and the degree of sarcasm was even higher. The laughter made Novikov very uncomfortable and even produced bursts of tinnitus. The crazy laughter lasted for a full minute. Just when Novikov couldn't help but want to make a move, Han Dong quickly reached out and grabbed his cheeks, forcibly stopping his laughter. "Sorry, I can't help it when I see others laughing at me. Coupled with your previous analysis, I really couldn't help it. Okay, Professor Novikov, start your performance." Not to mention whether Han Dong was labeled as a hybrid demon, whether he stopped Novikov's perfect plan at the critical moment. Just this series of sarcastic words and crazy laughter was enough to arouse his killing intent. Okay, then Novikov slowly raised his right arm and made a pistol gesture. Some kind of flesh-like spherical object was condensing at the tip of his finger. He imitated the sound of firing a gun. A ball of meat the size of a ping-pong ball shot out like a bullet. For the first attack, Han Dong originally intended to take it head-on, but when he stared at the ball of meat, his heart trembled. Eye-opening. See-through the magic eye, he identified the trajectory of the meat bullet and sidestepped to avoid it. Bang! The meat bullet lost its target and collided with the ground. Then, a strange phenomenon occurred. The small meat bullet expanded at the moment of impact and reached more than 3 meters in size before exploding. The ground of the temple was blown into a pit, and the biomass that made up the ground was completely evaporated. Rapid proliferation technology and cell decomposition. Oh, you seem to know more about biology. In my impression, the sacred city should be a low-level city that abandoned technology and relied entirely on the power of fate, stagnating in the steam age. If Mr. Newton heard this, he would beat the shit out of you. Chapter 940. Speaking of which, it's not easy to defeat this guy. I have almost zero information about his abilities. Count, are you there? Yes. What are you doing? Do you want control of your body? I'll give you 100% of the authority. Count would have been very happy with such generosity in the past. He was an extremely bloodthirsty scarlet overlord who loved to kill. He knew very well that it was impossible for him to possess Han Dong's body. After all, there were several old kings behind Han Dong, and even Count's original owner had to admit defeat. Because of this, it was Count's dream to be able to play with Han Dong's body one day. But when the dream suddenly came true, Count found it difficult to adapt. After a long period of body possession and various cooperation with Han Dong, Count was, to some extent, the person who knew Han Dong the best in a short period of time. At present, Count himself was quite confused and felt that Han Dong had some conspiracy. At this time, Han Dong hurriedly asked, "What's wrong? Scared?" "This Count will be scared. I'm just too excited and didn't get used to it for a while. Leave it to me. You just have to watch the show. Remember, your ability is limited by 20%, and there's no underworld blood for you to use." "Damn, where's the underworld blood? Didn't I tell you? All the Destiny equipment has been sealed. I only have 2 pieces of slave equipment on me now. You can't use finger glove, so make good use of John's spine. Anyway, this guy on the other side is also limited. Leave it to me. Don't die." Han Dong withdrew all his main consciousness and handed over full control of his body to Count for the first time. The scene cut back to the temple. Novikov, who was about to attack again, smelled a different fishy smell. He looked at the young knight with an incomprehensible gaze. At first, Han Dong gave him the feeling that he was a mysterious mage. Now, Han Dong's eyes were bloodshot. He bit his finger and used the blood to draw an exaggerated smile on his face. His originally upright posture slightly leaned forward. His arms hung in front of him, and his fingers were bent. Waves of bloody aura continuously appeared. Blood vessels covered the surface of his skin, making him look like a bloodthirsty monster. It's really annoying to have my abilities limited. However, it's been a long time since I've experienced a complete and healthy body. Nicholas's demonic eye coupled with my ability, I won't be able to find an opponent at the same level as me in close combat. Let's practice on this old man." Because Count's consciousness had completely taken over the body. Smiley Face, Talent Tree, was also biased towards the main consciousness and had undergone a certain change. It was mostly based on crazy laughter and fresh blood. The attribute-less tentacles from the faceless one's head were also dyed red with the fruit, which was the Count's special edition. He clasped his hands together. Count was chanting a secret incantation that Han Dong had never heard of before. It came from a source of the blood brew, the red giant, the old king who was on the same level as the Bufo. Blood secret method, blood dog stripping. A blood dog the size of a shepherd dog separated itself from the crowd. Its eyes were like blood gems. The hair on its back fluttered like embers and dust. The fangs made of tentacles were hidden in its mouth. It was completely different from the underworld blood dog arm used by Han Dong. Through the secret method to create consciousness, the completely separated blood dog was completely capable of fighting alone, and it could continue to grow stronger as it tore the enemy's flesh and blood. "Oh, Count, you still have this trick up your sleeve?" Han Dong, who was a spectator in the body, was quite surprised. He could feel that the blood dog was completely independent and did not need Count to control it. It had a complete combat ability by itself. This Count has a lot of abilities. It's a pity that the suppression is too strong. Otherwise, there would be other tricks to show you. Immediately, Count used the slave equipment, John's spine. Due to the influence of mad laughter, Count himself also had a certain crazy characteristic. The purpose of the spine was to build bone armor that was attached to the whole body or to strengthen the bones of a certain part. But Count's usage was different, even beyond Han Dong's imagination. "Count, this guy is really something." Han Dong was amazed. The spine embedded in the back was pulled out, and the whole John's spine was held in Count's right hand, and then the power of the holy blood was activated. Due to the 20% limit, it was difficult to condense a sufficiently large physical holy sword by relying on a small amount of holy blood. But with the spine as the foundation, with Count's own blood to condense the hilt and the sword body, finally, with the holy blood alone as the blade, a weapon suitable for fighting and killing the enemy can be forged. Gurgle, gurgle, streams of blood flowed. A large spine blood sword that can be classified as a heavy sword has been dragged on the ground. When this kind of weapon similar to Hell Weapon was formed, Novikov smelled a strong sense of threat and smiled at the same time. You actually have the blood of mythical contact in your body. What are you thinking? Your physique is not very good, and you still use such a heavy giant sword, which seriously reduces your sensitivity. I'll take your blood. The same finger shooting move. The difference was that this time Novikov used continuous shooting. A series of meat bullets quickly shot out. Different bullet paths blocked all the gaps that Han Dong could use to dodge. In addition to the increased weight of the spine giant sword, Han Dong could not dodge at all. Hit! Boom! The meat bullet hit the target, and the air was filled with a mist of meat, and the organisms wrapped in it were decomposed by cells. Not dead yet. Just as Novikov was about to shoot at the looming figure in the fog, he heard a loud noise. Ayo, because his attention was attracted by the spine-heavy sword and the blood mist that exploded when the meat bullet hit. He didn't find that there was a separate blood dog that quietly integrated with the environment through the body made of faceless tentacles. When a meat bullet hit Han Dong, the blood dog was already around his side. Hundreds of teeth of different sizes formed a dog mouth, biting down and directly biting the palm that was about to shoot. At the same time, in the midst of the explosion, a figure swept out. Due to the decomposition of the cells, many parts of Han Dong's body showed signs of meat erosion. Unfortunately, the skin on his cheeks was also affected by the decomposition of the cells, resulting in two crooked mouths that extended to his earlobes. This appearance was more in line with Count. Ha ha ha! It hurts! Count was immersed in such pain, and his movements became faster. With a wave of his hand, he threw out the heavy sword that was dragged along with his spine. This sword directly cut Novikov's head. The sharpness of the holy sword can not only kill evil, but also tear all hard objects. Whoosh! The blood mist dispersed. Professor Novikov, who was bent over, was directly split in half. Chapter 941. What is this thing? It was clearly slashed by the holy blood blade. Why is it like this? It originated from the curse that the Hall family brought out from the Destiny space. This kind of holy blood of unknown origin could give the blood a unique holy sword characteristic. The holy blood could wield the holy sword and kill all the mantis in the world. At the same time, they would also bear the responsibility of hunting down evil demons forever. The holy sword not only had an extremely strong restraining effect on evil beings, it was also quite sharp and could effectively suppress the regeneration ability of the target. As long as the holy sword pierced through the fatal part or split open, even if it didn't die, it would be seriously injured and difficult to recover. But with the holy blood as the blade, the spine-heavy sword constructed by Count was not suppressed when the target was split into two. The body that was split open left and right still exuded a strong vitality. The blood vessels were still pumping blood normally. The activity of the meat was even 10 times stronger than that of a living person. The internal organs that were cut open were also doing their own work normally. The body was not affected by being cut in half. The execution and operation of the relevant functions were not affected. Count, get out of the way. The opponent's body is also involved in mythical level contact. Han Dong's reminder and Count's instinctive reaction. He pulled the heavy sword and retreated immediately. However, then the blood dog, who was a step slower, was in danger. It was accompanied by barks and screams. The blood dog's body was pierced by fleshy spikes. Immediately after, Novikov's intestines wrapped around the blood dog and pulled it into the stomach. It was directly digested and skipped the process of swallowing. In just 2 seconds, Novikov's body that was split open left and right had been restored to its original state through the connection of the regenerated flesh. The original bent posture was also restored. He stood up straight and stretched out his big waist. It's a taste of blood that I have never tasted before. It's unexpectedly delicious. Also, I'm very grateful to you, because I have been pursuing organism hybridization in Mendel Company, trying to graft the superior genes of all animals into my body. But due to the unstable conflict of some gene sequences, some impurity stem cells accumulated in the spine, leading to a kind of rickets that is difficult to recover from. The sword just now, this kind of heavy sword slash with divine stimulation, successfully broke open my spine that had been covered in dirt and removed the internal graft impurities. This refreshing feeling is really too comfortable. Not only did it fail to injure the target, it even healed the target's old injuries. These words dealt a psychological blow to Count, who had experienced defeat before. After all, ever since he lost to Han Dong, Count's self-confidence had basically disappeared. The move that Count was so proud of had the opposite effect, causing his heart to waver and his fighting spirit to decrease greatly. Hey, Count, if you believe such words, then you're really too much of a coward. When you took out your heavy sword, that guy's eyes flashed with a kind of fear of danger. That sword strike just now must have caused some damage. It was just that the secret hidden in Novikov's body concealed this layer of damage. Count, if you're suppressed in terms of spirit and aura, you've basically lost. Suppress? How could this Count be so easily fooled? If one sword strike isn't enough, I'll give him 3 more. Let's see if he dies or not. Watch your performance. Han Dong's consciousness silently watched everything in his body. Whether or not he could win this battle, Han Dong didn't have much confidence in his heart. The key point was whether or not he could dig out Novikov's secret. As a fifth-order engineer, and for the dangerous mission that Gu Su specifically asked for, he had spent a lot of effort to come to Prometheus, so he must have prepared a trump card. For this kind of engineer who focused on biology, the best way was to dig out the secrets of his body through close combat. This was also the reason why Han Dong handed over control of his body to Count. He wanted to see how far Count could go, whether or not he could dig out the key secrets and find out Novikov's weakness. After receiving a slash from the Holy Sword, his body can still quickly regenerate. That is to say, his body also has a mythical level of regeneration. If we can't find a root cause, even if I join hands with Meritus, we will eventually lose due to exhaustion. Count, do your best. Because of Han Dong's words of encouragement just now, Count's fighting spirit was also reignited. After consuming a certain amount of blood, he once again built a blood dog that could fight alone. From the battle just now, the blood dog's effect was quite good. This time I must slash a few more times. There will definitely be an effect. Just when Count was about to continue the attack, Professor Novikov, who was not far away, suddenly changed. No longer using tentative meat bullets, he went straight to the point. He, who majored in biology, had always been pursuing the most perfect body. All kinds of fate transformation and scientific grafting made Novikov's body beyond the scope of human beings. Originally, he had the fundamental philosophy of absorbing all things, but 10 years ago, when he went to the real Fate Alien, his philosophy changed. In the world of Alien, there was an absolutely perfect creature. In order to obtain the flesh body of the god of Alien, Novikov even gave up the bottom line of being human. Once in the Alien movie, he killed the martial artists of Dragon City because of a conflict of interests. He even used his teammates as bait in the later stage to obtain the important relics of the White Giant. When he returned to Wangdu, he made up a perfect, dangerous story to describe the process of his teammates' sacrifice. Now, the perfect body he pursued was in front of him, and all who stood in his way would die without a doubt. Rank 5 engineers corresponded to Level 1 Fleshy Nerves, Level 2 Flesh and Blood Believers, Level 3 Genetic Programming System, Level 4 Selected Creatures, Level 5 cell consciousness, the second level flesh and blood believers, directly caused Novikov to completely close the door of magic in exchange for an extreme increase in the level of the flesh. A strong shark dorsal fin grew on the surface of the spine. A kind of insect appendage grew between the calf muscles, which could strengthen the center of gravity and provide stability to the lower body. The spine elongated to a certain extent, causing Novikov to grow from 7 meters to a height of 7 meters. In order to eliminate the uncoordinated upper body of the body, 8 extra muscular arms grew. At the same time, the whole body was covered with a white carapace similar to the alien. A perfect life form? Hey, Count, wait a minute. Just when Han Dong was shocked by this form, Count had already dragged the heavy sword of the spine and faced it head-on. In the eyes of Count, all the exaggerated changes in form were just paper tigers. Only the true inner strength was the standard to judge a person's strength. Bang! A loud noise came from the temple area. A blood-red figure flew out of the field like a bullet. Boom! Dust rose. Count heavily hit the bottom of the chair that carried the white giant elder. He almost directly knocked down the tens of meters high column-shaped chair. Chapter 942. Boom! A hole appeared at the bottom of the bone pillar table and chair. Fortunately, the chair had a self-repairing function. Otherwise, the white giant elder sitting on it would have fallen down. His ribs were caved in, and his body was severely twisted 180 degrees. Count's attack just now was not wrong. He used the bloodhounds to attack the target from both sides. Who knew that Novikov seemed to have changed into a different person? His reaction speed and physical fitness had increased by several levels. At the same time, he crushed the bloodhounds. He turned to a high-speed side kick and kicked Count's body. His internal organs were already in a mess. Fortunately, Count's physical fitness was not to be trifled with. To be precise, it should be Han Dong's body and the blood attribute stimulated by Count's consciousness. His regeneration was also very strong. But not long after Count recovered, he used the spine sword to support his body and stood up again. The figure emitting the terrifying aura of a creature had already enveloped him. Novikov, who had 10 arms, could not only deal with various forms of melee combat, but also switch to various movement positions. Currently, he was in crawling mode in the flat area of the temple. He could maintain the speed of a vehicle for a long time simply by relying on the strength and structure of the creature itself. Under certain circumstances, he could explode with astonishing speed in a short period of time. In terms of pure physical fitness, the current Han Dong and Novikov were very different. Han Dong, who was watching the battle from inside his body, was also shocked by the biological characteristics that Novikov displayed. At the same time, Novikov's 10 arms attacked from different directions in different forms. I saw through it. Count used the magic eye like Han Dong. Due to the urgency of the situation, the magic eye could only see the path of the 7 arms. Count was also very reckless. Even if he did not completely see through it, he did not consider retreating or dodging. He forcefully waved the spine sword in his hand. The blade condensed from the sacred blood under the control of Count's consciousness turned into the bloody mouth of the bloodhounds, increasing the attack range. Whoosh! Even if the surface was covered with a sturdy alien shell, it was still cut open by the sacred blood blade. 2 arms that had been completely torn apart by the blade flew into the air. Due to cutting off the arm, the bone sword was unable to cut through the target's body. Correspondingly, Novikov's hidden heavy punch returned in a straight line. There was no deviation or evasion, and it hit Count's skull head-on. The cracking sound from the skull startled Han Dong. The head was the gate of life. No matter what kind of battle broke out, no matter what kind of attack he received, the first thing Han Dong had to do was protect his head. He didn't expect Count to be so impulsive. The fist hit the upper part of the right eye socket, causing the skull to be slightly damaged. However, a gray tentacle came out of the crack and immediately repaired the skull. On the other side, the bones in Novikov's fist had already been crushed, and his 5 fingers were twisted into a ball. It was only because of the reaction force from hitting Han Dong's skull. So hard. This guy's head is at least 10 times harder than his body. That's right. Any individual involved in biological modification will strengthen their own weak points. It's normal to strengthen the skull. At the same time, Count, who was hit head-on by the heavy punch, flew out like a bullet again. Due to the impact of the heavy punch on the head, the instantaneous acceleration directly caused a serious tearing phenomenon to occur between the head and neck. 80% of the skin and muscle tissue were torn apart. Immediately, boom, he hit the bone pillar seat 100 meters away. The spine on his back was broken due to the horizontal impact. At the same time, due to the sudden stop effect caused by the impact, the neck, which had been severely torn, was completely broken. The head rolled to the ground like a rubber ball. When he saw this scene, Novikov's pursuit speed also deliberately slowed down. With an expression of victory, he turned to face the elders in the lookout and showed the perfect posture of life. His feet were together, and his toes were raised. His 10 arms slowly spread out. The extension of each arm had a fixed angle, which was unique and beautiful. The shark fins on his back were also completely exposed and straight. Because of his tall body, his whole body was covered with a white shell from the Crown Prince alien. Novikov was more like a perfect combination of the white giant, the alien, and the 3 intelligent life forms. Just as Novikov was showing his body, Count, whose head was separated and spine was broken, was actually not too bad. After all, repairing the spine was not difficult for blood life forms, and for Han Dong's body, the broken head only needed to be reattached. The key problem was only the punch just now. It directly smashed a crack in the head. Even though the crack had been repaired, Han Dong was still scared out of his wits. Count, don't be so reckless next time. No matter what happens, the first thing is to protect the head. Count did not respond to Han Dong's voice transmission in time. After waiting for about 10 seconds, there was a response. I don't want to fight. I'll return the body to you. I want to rest for a while. Scared? This time, Han Dong's verbal coercion directly made Count's emotions completely explode. How to fight? Tell me, with my current physical condition, how can I fight this guy head-on? If you want speed, you don't have enough speed. I need strength, but I don't have enough strength. My ability is also limited. I can't use high-level blood skills at all. My demon eye can't read all of his movements, and I can't use hell blood. Most importantly, his regeneration ability is above mine, and he also has a mythical contact equal to the Holy Sword. I don't want to fight anymore. Anyway, since this Count lost to you, I've already thought of anything. In the face of death, if I die, then I die. Seeing Count's emotions so agitated, Han Dong changed his tone and comforted him. Count, your take a beating is not useless. To be honest, I admire your recklessness. At least I can't be reckless. Moreover, the 2 attacks you launched so far have a certain effect. The first cut opened his body, the second cut off his arms. This kind of close contact can let us understand Professor Novikov better. I'm about to pry into this guy's secret. You must carry out the spirit of take a beating to the end. Take a beating, isn't that the characteristic of your anomaly? What does it have to do with me? Count, to tell the truth. If you succeed this time, you can bring back what the Bufo wants, and you will inevitably get the opportunity to observe the wall, and it will be a wall from the Bufo's original body. Your consciousness is intact, and you can rely on the blood dog to show your physical independence. You will continue to grow. At that time, the old King's Wall may let you pass through the door, peek into the truth of the origin, and reach the level of ancestral body. Then you may be able to get a new body from behind the door and be completely independent. Hold on for 10 more minutes, then leave it to me. But remember, you must protect your head. F***CKU. Come. A few bloodlines shot out from his neck and connected to his head. With a backhand slap, he straightened the broken spine. Count, who had recovered, gritted his teeth and rushed toward Novikov again with his heavy sword. Pakachit oucha! While a series of beatings and screams echoed in the temple, and even some of the white giant elders who were partial to Han Dong couldn't stand it anymore. It was too miserable. Chapter 943. Count still has something up his sleeves. Even if his body is much weaker than Novikov's, he can still fight for 10 minutes. Basically, I can be sure. Professor Novikov's body, which claims to be a perfect creature, can heal wounds caused by the holy sword, is not invincible. Count's occasional attacks, he will take the initiative to dodge, and even his eyes will flash a look of fear. The information collected now is 1. The healing speed of any part of the body is the same. Even if the same part is injured multiple times, it will not slow down the healing speed. I estimate that the focus of its regeneration is not energy, but number of times. 2. It will actively avoid some attacks. Whether the attack is aimed at the fatal part or the non-fatal part, it will be avoided. Compared to the attack aimed at the fatal part, Novikov is more afraid of some of the strong and powerful attacks released by Count. 3. Zero magic. Novikov has not released a single magic. Except for the biomass shell, which can have a certain resistance to magic. He is completely a layman who is completely excluded from the magic world. 4. It's not much information, because Novikov's plan was interrupted by me at the last step. In addition, Count is like an unkillable cockroach. It is still difficult to kill Count under almost complete suppression, causing Novikov to become more and more impatient and turn part of the defense into attack. It's about time. Slap. A slap hit Count's side heavily, and his left arm was shattered. His body tumbled several times in the air and fell heavily. Poof! A pool of sticky blood with flesh sprayed on the ground. Because of the continuous serious injuries that have touched the foundation, this kind of injury can't be healed by the regeneration ability, and a long period of rest is required. Count's eyes were also covered by a layer of blood mist, and his vision became blurred. Even so, Count still gritted his teeth, reached out, and stuffed the scattered organs back into his body, and tried to stand up. Count, it's been hard. The information collected is enough. I will deal with this guy. Kill him. Count, who had been beaten the whole time, only said 3 words before he fell into a deep sleep. He was too tired. If not for Count's strong self-consciousness supporting him, he would have fainted during the beating. The fragments of his ribs were interspersed in his body. His internal organs were in a mess. 70% of the muscles were ruptured. Comminuted fracture of his left arm. Because his body had suffered too many fatal attacks, a large number of hidden dangers had been buried. At any time, his body could be completely shattered by a single attack. Han Dong's current state could be described as on the verge of death. However, near death was the second reason why Han Dong let Count completely take over the body. Count didn't just want to find out the secrets of Novikov's body through close combat. Similarly, Han Dong wanted to borrow Count's ability to withstand injuries and willpower so that his body would fall into a near-death state after being seriously injured again and again. Of course, this process couldn't be endured by Han Dong. Otherwise, it would be difficult to carry out the subsequent battles. Of course, he couldn't let Count work for free. After the event, he would definitely thank Count properly. This is the feeling. In a situation where my ability is completely limited, it is difficult to touch death with my own perception. I can only rely on physical means to approach the edge of death. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Worn on the left middle finger, the finger glove that was jointly forged by Boss Heyes and High Priest Tucherman with the original technology was slowly rotating. Its quality had reached unique, far surpassing the related equipment at the current slave level. Although Novikov's face was full of smiles, he looked at the elders watching the battle from time to time, deliberately showing his perfect body, but his heart wasn't calm. Why is this guy still not dead? If it were someone else, they would have died at least 5 times. Staring at Nicholas, who was paralyzed on the ground like mud, still exuding vitality, the accumulated impatience in Novikov's heart slowly evolved into a kind of hatred. Why are you still not dead? The generation of anger increased the blood flow rate of the whole body. It accelerated explosively, ready to completely tear the target to shreds before he could regenerate. Ha! He tightly grabbed Han Dong's neck and locked his gaze on his head. Since your head is so hard, I will directly smash your head. Let's see how you can regenerate. Intensifying the physical body. Raising the fist in the air, multiple layers of carapace condensed on the surface. Small nail structures protruded from the outermost layer of the carapace. The corresponding arm muscles continued to increase and superimpose, and the next impact of the fist would be more than twice as strong as before. The other hands pressed on different parts of Han Dong's body to ensure that he couldn't make any resistance movements. Die! When this fist swung down, even Meritus, who was fighting with two alien androids in the corner of the temple, sensed the danger and looked at the center of the field with an anxious gaze. Nicholas, don't die, boom! The field trembled, and dust rose everywhere. To be able to exert such physical strength under the 20% restriction state, Novikov could be regarded as the strongest physical person among all the participating teams this time. But there was no skull residue in the ground where his fist smashed. Han Dong's body, which was pressed down by him, was still there, and his head was indeed blown away. But why was there no bone and flesh residue? In addition to the broken ground, there was only sand scattered all over the ground. Danger. As a perfect life form, Novikov was also top-notch at the level of danger awareness. The moment he smelled danger, his body spontaneously retreated, decisively abandoning the headless body he was suppressing. Rustle, rustle, rustle. What is this? When Novikov felt a tingling pain and looked at his fist, he found that the fist, which was protected by 3 layers of carapace, was disintegrating inwardly due to the attachment of the black sand. In just 10 seconds, it had penetrated the bone layer of the fist. It felt like a scarab was trying to get into the body. Novikov was quite decisive. He aimed at the part eroded by the black sand and cut off the skin and flesh. When he looked at the center of the field again, the headless body, which was originally smashed by his fist, was undergoing self-desertification. Only 2 legs were left intact. Every few seconds, they all turned into sand and drifted in the air. The black sand disintegrated by Han Dong's body first formed the image of a jackal's head in the air. Then it converged towards one point. In the promotion competition, it was Han Dong's first attempt to enter the dead form. This was the true dead form. The black sand focused on the ability. The torso was mostly yellow sand, gray dry skin, and worn bandages. The internal structure was completely hollow, and some parts were completely perforated. The black sand only appeared in 3 places. 1. A black cloth formed on the face, tied around the eyes, and only the forehead was exposed. 2. The black scythe of resentment on the back. 3. The black finger glove still worn on the left middle finger. Chapter 944. There are 2 completely different types of mythical contact in your body. Let's not talk about how you offset the rejection. Are you really a second-order knight? When he saw Han Dong's dead form, Novikov's performance was more of a surprise than a panic. He was also a mad scientist. He did not hesitate to use his own body to carry out all kinds of gene grafting. The side effects were not as simple as rickets. For a long time, Novikov could not even sleep. His body was covered with itchy lumps that were difficult to endure. Han Dong's revealed state was difficult for him to understand, and to some extent, it stimulated Novikov's desire to study. He wanted to take Han Dong back and carefully analyze the young knight's body to understand the secrets. Come on, continue. Novikov tried to calm down his impatient mood as much as possible. When he felt the threat from Han Dong, Novikov used a slave equipment that would cause a lot of side effects. This equipment he originally planned to use when controlling a divine creature. Solar parasite, blue rare A parasitic equipment unique to Shundu, it was implanted in the back of Novikov's neck. It was the equipment reward that Novikov got when he went to work inside the Black Pyramid after passing the promotion assessment. It combined the biological sun technology of the Sun Temple and the Black Pyramid. With the activation of the parasite, stripes similar to solar flares emerged on Novikov's body. The shark fins that originally grew on the back to stabilize and balance the center of gravity were classified into two exaggerated wing structures with the coverage of solar flares. Click, 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 under the infusion of the sun's energy. The body further grew and reached a height of about 5 meters. The originally gray hair grew to shoulder length and showed a golden luster. As the solar energy released from the body fluttered in the air, the hair also flashed with light spots. A circle of sun marks formed on Novikov's chest. Sun form. Some elders who watched the battle couldn't help but sigh. There is such a perfect human being. Han Dong, who was floating not far away, was also a little helpless. Under the magic eye, he could see a layer of sun halo enveloping Novikov's body. Son, this is information that's outside of our intelligence, so it's a little troublesome. This layer of brilliant light could obviously provide a good magic defense, and it would also give his attacks the effect of burning sun, which could damage my undead body. As expected, this guy knew that he was a magic muggle. The first thing he did when he came to the fairy's capital was to look for the corresponding magic armor. However, it's not too difficult. The battle between the undead and the sun has officially begun. Novikov stared at Han Dong, who was floating in place, and muttered softly. Even his personality has changed. He didn't take the initiative to attack. Is he waiting for me to attack? Let's seal off your perception first. That way, you won't be able to hide. Novikov didn't hesitate either. He instantly burst forth with an astonishing speed and charged straight at Nicholas when they were 10 meters apart. The sun mark on Novikov's chest was activated, and intense sunlight shone directly at Han Dong's little magic eye. Even if he closed his eyes, he would still suffer some burns. Such a fragile mummy without bones and muscles. I'll crush you with one slap. Since the target's vision and perception were blocked, Novikov used his body's flexibility to suddenly turn around and quickly move to the blind spot behind Han Dong. He smashed down with his palm. Due to the huge difference in physique, Novikov was 3 times bigger than Han Dong. This palm was enough to crush him into a pancake. Boom! When the palm hit the ground, the brilliant light rose. A high-temperature palm print was pressed on the biomass ground. However, Han Dong wasn't crushed. He stood beside the palm print and just dodged it. Whoosh! Black side slash. Novikov's arm, which he used to launch the palm strike, was left on the ground. The incision on the surface of the arm was smooth and flat. The black sand covering the surface of the incision automatically formed scarabs, which quickly gnawed the entire arm. For a moment, Novikov, who was so scared that he was sweating profusely, had retreated 10 meters away. The slash just now had an effect on regeneration. This is a perception type spell, a melee mage. Novikov didn't understand how Han Dong could dodge and counterattack in time when the magic eye was sealed. Upon closer observation, he found that an eye made of black sand floated on Han Dong's shoulder, providing additional visual assistance. A perception type spell. In particular, this kind of technique that could provide additional perception was not something that a magic beginner could master. Recalling Han Dong's initial bloody combat mode and his extraordinary physical attacks, Novikov became more and more unable to understand what Han Dong was. Being a melee mage and being strong in both aspects, this should not be something that a level 2 knight could do. At this moment, the voice of the dead came. Professor Novikov, according to my speculation and observation, the secret of regeneration provided by the mythical level contact that supports your perfect biological body seems to have nothing to do with energy. It's the simplest number of times. The healing speed of any part of your body is the same. For an attack that meets the standard of strength, even if it only cuts off one of your fingers, you will do your best to dodge. My guess is that you use the characteristics of the mythical level contact to equalize your physical body, and all the fatal points and weaknesses no longer exist. It's like putting potatoes of uneven quality together and planning to knead them all together to make mashed potatoes. But thinking about it from another perspective, you seem to have weaknesses all over your body. Since it's equalized, then attacking any part of your body will cause the same damage to you. Even if it cuts off one of your fingers, it can still cause damage. The key is whether the strength of the attack meets the standard. As long as the attack is powerful enough, it can consume the number of times of your regeneration. Once the number of times is exhausted, your perfect body will also collapse. I'm right? And you spent a lot of effort, spent a lot of points to buy the cards of fate that can point to Prometheus, and came to the Temple of the White Giant after several years because you also know that your body is actually not perfect. If you want to be perfect in the true sense, you need the divine creation from the alien worldview, the flesh and blood of the alien god to make up for it. On top of the original mythical level contact, another similar layer of mythical level contact will be superimposed to make up for the weaknesses of your physical body. Han Dong's inference made Novikov stunned for at least half a minute, and then a gloomy look appeared in his eyes. Oh, you can even infer this point, but can you deduce how many times I've used it? What if it's 100 times, 1,000 times? Can your body withstand it? At this moment, the black scythe had been placed on Novikov's neck, and Han Dong, who had made the conclusion in the distance, turned into black sand and dissipated. Taking advantage of the time when he had just made the conclusion, Han Dong relied on the black sand particles on Novikov's body to transfer whoosh. His head fell. Han Dong was also counting and whispered the second time. Chapter 945. There was no mercy. When Han Dong faced Novikov, he always maintained a murderous mentality. Every move wanted to kill. He didn't have any mercy because he was a human. It wasn't just because Novikov's every attack was filled with killing intent. More importantly, Han Dong, who was in the state of the dead, could actually see Novikov's killing karma. Excluding the hybrid demons, the number of humans who died in Novikov's hands was at least in the double digits. For such a murderous demon, he was unscrupulous in obtaining abilities. Bang! Bang! The sound of hard objects colliding constantly came from the temple. Black sand splashed. Light shone in all directions. With the cover of the sun's brilliance, Novikov built several layers of armor on the surface of his arms through superposition and hardening. He had reached a level where he could collide head-on with the scythe. However, during the fight, Novikov, who had 10 arms, didn't have much of an advantage. Han Dong's posture was different from before. He used a black silk scarf to cover his eyes. He gave up his vision and focused on the magic eye to focus on the battle. This increased the efficiency of the magic eye by 30%. Moreover, Han Dong was using it himself. Naturally, it was better than count. He could basically see through the attacks coming from all directions. He could even predict Novikov's next move. When he felt that his movements might be blocked, Han Dong would immediately abandon all attacks and decisively pull away. Even so, the difference in physical fitness was still very obvious. How could one not wet their shoes if they stood by the river often? So fast. Oh no! Multiple fists came from different angles. Han Dong interpreted the best dodging route, but his body couldn't keep up. Knowing that he couldn't dodge, he quickly swung the scythe in his hand. Pa! A punch hit Han Dong's shoulder. Additional special effect, sun's brilliance. Even if Han Dong's body was made of sand and was basically immune to physical attacks, he still suffered heavy damage. The black sand on his shoulder evaporated under the effect of the sun. Han Dong flew back due to the strong impact and crashed into the surface of the bone pillar dozens of meters away. Boom! The pillar trembled, and the elder on top almost fell down. Fortunately, before the collision, Han Dong's back was cushioned by a layer of soft sand, which almost offset the impact. However, the piercing pain coming from his shoulder was abnormally strong, similar to the pain of severe burns. This kind of attack was extremely dangerous. Even if he was in the dead form, he could still be executed by Novikov. At that time, Han Dong would fall into a deeper death zone, which was the Chaos Death Zone. He would die completely. However, Han Dong, who was slowly propping himself up, smiled without the slightest bit of fear. He said in a low voice the third time. On the other hand, on Novikov's side, when he had just punched Han Dong, A few of his fingers had been cut off by the sickle. Once the sickle of the dead, which carried the resentment of thousands of dead people, was successfully cut, it would exceed Novikov's tolerance limit, and he would lose a chance to regenerate. The fourth time, the fifth time, the sixth time, zone. The death aura increased, and the resentment strengthened. On the original basis, the sickle was covered with a layer of ghost-like black sand, and the attack range was doubled. Novikov's left shoulder was cut into his body, and his body was cut into two halves. The 10th time, you seem to have become nervous. What happened to the 100 times and 1,000 times? Why can't you do it after 10 times? The left and right body that was thrown into the air quickly reformed. At this time, Novikov's facial expression had completely changed. The confidence, anxiety, and anger in his eyes slowly turned into a kind of fear, the fear of death. For a moment, when he looked at Han Dong, it was as if he had seen a real death god. Mythical level contact. Hercules, 12 trials. Novikov had accidentally obtained the token of Hercules in the Destiny world, which triggered the hidden event, 12 trials. He participated in a trial mission designed by the Destiny world according to the individual level. There were a total of 12 trials. Novikov completed the incredible trial with amazing perseverance and almost perfect body. He almost climbed to the top in a state of anxiety. Thus, he obtained the mythical level contact related to regeneration. It allowed an individual to receive 12 serious injuries during the battle and perfectly recover, even if it was a fatal injury. After the battle, a large amount of energy was needed to replenish regeneration. It would take at least a month to replenish regeneration, but this kind of mythical level contact was quite abnormal. Because of this, Novikov also had a high position in the Mendel Company. Unfortunately, just when he was about to achieve the next level, he met an even more monstrous existence. If there was no 20% limit, he might be able to suppress Han Dong. The current restrictions had narrowed the gap between the two of them. With the help of the epic slave equipment, Han Dong had reduced the gap between the two of them to 0, or even surpassed them. Nicholas, wait. As long as you don't stop me from getting the flesh of the god of Alien, I am willing to sign a contract and assist you in the following events. Even if you want to kill Tesla or the group of people from Dragon City, it is completely no problem. All the items obtained in Prometheus will be yours. Moreover, after I return to Wangdu, I will not disclose any information about you and your teammates. Novikov proposed a compromise at this juncture and was even willing to sign the relevant contract with his own soul. Because the perfection he pursued was in front of him, he must not fall here. Okay. Han Dong immediately showed a kind smile, immediately wrote a contract, and walked to Novikov. When the two were 2 meters away from each other, the sun mark on Novikov's chest directly exploded. A terrifying white alien head suddenly stretched out from the inside and unexpectedly bit Han Dong's head. The speed and destructive power were better than the fist. However, Han Dong had never thought of accepting the compromise proposal of a murderer. He had been wary of the cunning engineer the whole time. Shwa, the alien head that broke out of the chest, was cut off by the scythe, the 11th. But the scythe only cut off the growth part. Novikov's 10 arms were quite intact, and Han Dong was completely in the attack range. Pa! A slap sent the black scythe flying out. With a perfect posture, he opened his 10 arms and embraced Han Dong. He intended to crush Han Dong's body with brute force and evaporate all the black sand with the solar flare. After all, in his impression, Han Dong without the scythe was not enough to break through the limit of regeneration. But just as the embrace was about to be completed, as a perfect creature, he instinctively felt a sense of danger sweeping through his body. This was a sense of danger that he had never felt before, a real danger that was enough to kill. Novikov quickly looked down at his arms. At this time, Han Dong was pressing his left middle finger, wearing a black finger glove, against his chest. At the same time, he looked up at him and asked the last sentence. Your upper limit is 12. I didn't guess wrong, right? No, I'm willing to sign a slave agreement. I'm willing to serve you for the rest of my life. Buzz. The black light that penetrated his chest interrupted Novikov's last words. It was as if Anubis pierced through Hercules' heart and took away the soul of Hercules. I'm sorry, my prison is full. Also, I don't accept trash here. When the perfect creature, Novikov, fell. In the blurry vision, he vaguely saw several extremely terrifying figures floating behind Han Dong. At the same time, Han Dong also became an indescribable, terrifying existence with gray tentacles floating behind his head. It was far beyond the biological level. Chapter 946. Faction Mission. Defend the Martyr's Palace has been completed. Rewards have been issued. 1. Reputation, White Giant. Friendly, respectful 2. Important storyline NPC, God of Aliens, Deacon. Attitude has changed. Cold, trusting in this last battle of life and death. Han Dong boldly used a method of inducement, because he was not sure how many times Novikov could regenerate, and Han Dong could also guess that when the number of regenerations was about to be exhausted, the other party would inevitably use extreme measures. Therefore, Han Dong had to hold back. This move would be the key to victory. In the early stages of the battle, even though he was hit by Novikov many times, Han Dong still used the Black Scythe as his only means of attack. In battle after battle, Novikov's attention was all on the scythe, and he slowly ignored the threat of Han Dong himself. This was why in the end, Novikov naively thought that he could kill Han Dong at close range by knocking away the scythe. Finger of Death, ending Novikov's life and completely erasing the mythical contact that existed in his body, making the fatal part and the normal part be exactly equal. The purpose of this is to suppress the low-level participants of Fate. Participants whose level is lower than his would find it difficult to cause an attack that exceeds the limit and would not be able to consume his regenerations. Even if he used his trump card, he would at most consume no more than 3 regenerations. It was through this mythical contact that Novikov killed one human participant after another, and even Wang Du's teammates. Of course, he himself was aware of the problem with the limit. If Novikov were to obtain the divine creation from Prometheus, he might be able to completely erase the limit. Only a complete death would consume one of his regenerations. When that time comes, only death awaits me if I were to face him again. The battle was not over yet, and Novikov's 2 teammates had not been dealt with. With a wave of his hand, the black scythe that had fallen not far away flew back to Han Dong's hand. When he looked at the edge of the arena, the 2 androids that imitated the Crown Prince's xenomorphs were limp on the ground, as if they had been dead for some time. Meritus leaned against the bone pillar and waved with a smile. At this moment, a public announcement by the system reached the ears of the teams. All allele teams have been eliminated. Han Dong was also surprised. He did not expect the team's elimination information to be announced to the public. Once he knew that Han Dong had killed Novikov, the hatred between him and Wang Du's, of course, his hatred. But that was also a matter for later. Han Dong now had the absolute advantage. As long as he grasped the opportunity well, he would definitely surpass the other teams. At that time, he would be able to meet the requirements of the Fate event ahead of time, touching upon the truth and origin of the world of Prometheus. Han Dong of the Temple of Light Temple, S's palace. The white giant elders in the temple had shown a devout, welcoming posture. They crossed their hands in front of their chests, closed their eyes, and bowed their heads, as if welcoming the arrival of a supreme being. Han Dong had already removed his dead form and stood side by side with Meritus. At this time, a different xenomorph slowly descended from the top of the temple. Without the help of any equipment, it was obviously equipped with an anti-gravity system. Drip, drip, drip. Mucus dripped. The xenomorph was covered with mucus, as if it usually stayed in the mucus tank. It was only 5 meters tall, and its body was thin, less than half the size of an ordinary xenomorph. There was no obvious shell structure, and its overall body was of very ordinary flesh and blood life. The aura of divinity continued to pour out of this little thing. This was the god of xenomorph that Novikov was looking for. As long as he ate the flesh of this thing, he could become a perfect life in the true sense. It stretched out its hand covered with mucus. Han Dong understood the other party's meaning and immediately reached out to touch the other party's hand. When the palms touched, their consciousness connected. Direct communication on the consciousness level. This way, there would be no lies, and it would be a private conversation between the two. The white giant elders would not know what the two were talking about and could speak freely. Thank you for your help to help me get rid of the outsiders with bad intentions. In return, I'm willing to give you some materials in the temple. However, I have one more thing to confirm with you. The reason why I gave you the divine seal and allowed you to enter the temple is that you carry the power of the ancient Egyptian gods. It was also this power that helped you defeat the outsiders who were much stronger than you in the temple. If you can make use of it and continue to grow, it may help you to sit on the throne of the pharaoh. I hope you can replace the Black Pharaoh in the holy capital and build a new empire. Can you accept this responsibility? If not, I will not force you. I will also be friendly to you in the future. This question directly hit the nail on the head. The god of abnormalities' thoughts were very clear. He wanted to push Han Dong to sit on the throne of the pharaoh. If Han Dong could replace the current pharaoh, he could change the laws and the original settings of the holy capital. He could even change the thoughts of the slaves and give the white giant and abnormality the right to live again. However, the difficulty of becoming the pharaoh was 10 times, 100 times, or even more difficult than the duel in the temple just now. However, Han Dong already had this idea. Oh, I happen to have the same idea. I wonder how much help you can provide. Han Dong's answer stunned the other party. But because of the connection of their consciousness, Han Dong was obviously not lying. If I judge that you have the qualifications to sit on the throne of the pharaoh, I will use all the power in the temple to assist you. Before that, I will not accept a large number of people, but I will provide the relevant supplies. Okay, I'm still far from it. I'm still in a sealed state and need a long time to prepare. How about this? I need to bring back some things from the temple in exchange for contribution points so that I can get rid of my slave status as soon as possible. First, take some useless things and let me bring them back to try. If it works, I will take on the role of a garbage hauler and bring all the useless but valuable garbage back to the holy capital. Also, I will arrange for 3 friends to travel here and let them bring some things back to Handon. They are very important to me and can be considered as my right-hand men who will help me get to the top. Okay, abnormality, Deacon readily agreed to Han Dong's request. Han Dong immediately made arrangements for his teammates as soon as he arrived. Their progress was obviously much faster. However, the news of the elimination of the Allele team had reached the ears of all the teams. Tesla was not the only one who immediately changed his mind and accelerated the idea of gaining contribution points. Dragon City's team was also alert. A race of speed had begun. Chapter 9:47. Shindu Black Gold Tower, Dinojin Factory Clang, a large sack of junk was piled up on the ground, including produced facehugger eggs, preserved alien shell, old white giant bioarmor, alien head launcher, damaged, and so on. These seemingly useful junk were piled up to a height of 2 meters. High Priest Tutelaman, who was staring at the pile of trash, was extremely shocked. Although many of the items were useless, this pile of trash was enough to show that Han Dong had not only survived in the Forbidden Zone, but had also reached a very deep area. How deep did you go? White Giant Temple. I collected these things between the first and second ribs. You passed through the facehugger egg planting area and successfully sneaked into the temple. How did you do it? The high priest's face was filled with disbelief. The White Giant Temple meant that Han Dong had reached the most dangerous place in the forbidden area. This depth was almost impossible for first-time explorers to reach. The temple was equipped with extremely high-end detection equipment, and there were also a large number of aliens with a keen sense of smell and armed white giant patrolling. It was basically impossible to sneak in. Han Dong explained simply. Actually, I was trapped outside the planting area for a long time. The closely arranged eggs and patrolling gardeners completely blocked the path. Just as I was about to give up, there was the sound of fighting in another passage, and the gardeners all rushed over to help. It should have been a large-scale battle, and it extended into the temple. The path was full of corpses of various aliens. I took this opportunity to sneak into the temple and brought back some things. I don't know if these things can be converted into contribution points. A large-scale commotion, it should be the Nine Pillars Company doing something. However, even if there was a large-scale commotion in the forbidden area, you being able to go deep into the temple area and bring back so many things has already exceeded my expectations. These things are enough for you to level up from white slave to gray slave. The progress is already very fast. You should rest for a while. As for how to obtain black slave contribution points, we will talk about it in detail later. Han Dong didn't have any intention of resting and continued to ask, High Priest, how about this? Since I've already roughly figured out the cave route of the forbidden area, and I've even been to the lower level of the temple, why don't you continue to apply for permission to enter the forbidden area for me? I want to try to go to a higher floor and try to bring back more useful things. The high priest stared at Han Dong with a strange expression. You're really interesting. You're not the first slave I've sent to the Forbidden Zone. In the past, those who were able to come back alive were all left with an indelible scar of fear in their hearts. They would rather die than go back to the forbidden area. You actually took the initiative to ask to go again. All right, I'll help you apply for the right to enter the Forbidden Zone. It's estimated that it'll be done in 3 days. Thank you, High Priest. At this moment, the aura of fear engulfed Han Dong's entire body. It even condensed an arm and placed it on Han Dong's shoulder. Its voice was transmitted directly to his brain. By the way, you're not hiding anything from me, right? No, I just want to get contribution points as soon as possible and meet the benchmark requirements for the God's Chosen One assessment. Very good. Just like that. As the contribution points requirement was met, Han Dong was promoted from white slave to gray slave. The promotion of his identity also brought about the removal of some restrictions. The strength he could exert increased from 20% to 30%. Han Dong had no intention of resting at all. He immediately contacted Abel and Mia, who were in the special training, as well as Dimps, who was taking a nap in the pool. The team temporarily gathered in an ordinary hotel. No matter what method you use, you must apply for the right to enter the Forbidden Zone in the near future. I have no problem here. Dimps expressed that it was a piece of cake. Dimps and Mia had also recently gained a certain level of authority in the organization. However, going to the Forbidden Zone was not a trivial matter. It would take them 3 days to apply. Nicholas, why do you want us to go to the Forbidden Zone? I heard it's quite dangerous there. It's hard to explain now. In short, it's a good thing. We can quickly obtain contribution points. Speaking of this, Dimps gently put his elbow on Han Dong's shoulder and asked softly, By the way, does the elimination of Allele have anything to do with you? Well, I killed Novikov and eliminated the biggest threat in advance. Dimps' eyes lit up. Although he expected that Han Dong would do something beneficial to the team's growth, he did not expect to solve the most unstable factor so quickly. Dimps always felt that Novikov was a troublesome person and did not know what he would do. Okay, you guys hurry up and apply. We must participate in the God's Chosen One assessment before the other teams. I have a big plan in the middle of, and I must not let the other teams interfere with my plan. Okay, Abel and Mia immediately returned to their respective organizations. Dimps stayed for a while and whispered some secret information in Han Dong's ear. Tesla and his team's development in the God's capital is at a normal speed, far behind you. However, you must pay attention to the Dragon City team. This group of people's recent whereabouts are very strange. Even with the power of the Women's Federation, it's difficult to find some of their movements. Their current relationship involves the Sun God's Temple, Earth God's Temple, and Wind God's Temple. That monk's whereabouts were completely lost 2 days ago. Demps seemed to be enjoying himself every day, but in reality, he was using his unique connections to enter the circle of noble women in the god's capital and investigate the other team's movements through a special network. At this moment, Demps gently nudged Han Dong's waist with his elbow. "Hey, kid, have you found the way to take the identity assessment? I'm already making preparations, and the progress is quite good." "That's good. I'll do my best to pave the way for you." "All right. There's something very important that I heard by chance not long ago." "What is it?" "I heard a rumor that the pharaoh who is currently in charge of the god's capital is not a local." Demps's shocking information caused Han Dong to be abruptly stunned. "What? You mean the pharaoh himself is not a fated character in the world of Prometheus? Instead, he's a participant like us? A participant who has obtained control of the world? Although it's just a rumor, it's still credible. So, you have to prepare for two things. The first is the identity assessment, and the second is the fight for power. If there are really other participants who have taken the pharaoh's position in advance, and you want to seize the power, a war is inevitable. Okay." Chapter 948. 3 days later, Han Dong and the others, who had obtained permission to enter the Forbidden Area, went to the Forbidden Area through the more dangerous second exit. However, with Han Dong's identity, it was the same no matter where he went. In the beginning, when he explored the cave in the Forbidden Area, he was still timid. Later, he stopped pretending. Han Dong walked at the front of the team with his head held high. All the aliens that passed by lowered their bodies and passed by the team on both sides. During this time, there were a few aliens that tilted their heads and looked at Han Dong with a friendly look. While dripping acidic saliva, they used their eyes to ask for instructions. As long as Han Dong gave the order, they would follow. How did you do it?" Because it was the first time she came to the Forbidden Area, Mia was still a little afraid of the large number of aliens that exuded a terrifying aura. If she had to face them alone, it would be very good if she could deal with 3 at the same time. In fact, it's impossible for me and Meritus to achieve this at this stage. It's all thanks to Novikov, this huge stepping stone. He directly put me on the temple and made me come into contact with the highest existence here. Because I stood on the opposite side of Novikov, I had the opportunity to work for the ruler here and obtain a corresponding identity. To be honest, I'm still very grateful to Professor Novikov. "What's your identity now?" "The spokesperson of the god of aliens, about the same level as the elder of the white giant." It was hard to imagine that Han Dong could achieve such results in a few days, but everyone was used to it. When passing through the planning area, the gardeners in charge of selecting the facehuggers smiled and greeted Han Dong. They even took out healthy and high-quality facehuggers from the glass tubes and wanted to give them to the future savior. Han Dong didn't refuse. "Wait for a while, I'll pick some excellent facehuggers. You guys work hard." Walking in the planting area, Han Dong couldn't help but put his hands behind his back. It was as if he was a doctoral supervisor when he was alive, walking between different laboratories to supervise and inspect the students who were doing experiments. Crossing the planting area, a temple that looked like a rib appeared in front of everyone. Even Demps paused for a few seconds because of this exaggerated temple building. "Let's go. We might stay here for a few days." Nominally, they were venturing into the Forbidden Zone. He couldn't possibly return to the Immortals' capital with a huge pile of loot after just one day. That would definitely arouse suspicion. Therefore, Han Dong decided to stay for 3 days. At the same time, he also conveyed his request to the workers in the temple, asking them to bring over all the trash that looked useful. At this rate, we'll all be able to level up to Black Slave in half a month at most. The amount of power he could unleash would be increased to 40% or even 50%. At that time, we will participate in the God's Chosen One assessment, which will be directly supervised by the Pharaoh. Once we pass, we will be free of our slave status and meet the basic requirements. The so-called God's Chosen One assessment, I guess, is related to the gods of ancient Egypt. According to the information I've seen so far, The Nine Pillars Corporation, located in the first ring of Shun, should be the main organization in charge of the God's Chosen One tournament. Dragon City's recent close contact with these companies is probably because they've considered this point. Let's try to get ahead of them as much as possible. I personally don't want to face that monk. Since the biggest contribution problem had been solved by Han Dong, everyone could put all their energy into improving their abilities. Just like Han Dong's suggestion, since their abilities were limited and their equipment was sealed, it was better to completely integrate themselves into the world of destiny. Mia seemed to have found a special biological training method. She stood alone in the temple's resting area and practiced swinging her sword, reducing her reliance on spider legs. As for Abel's condition, Han Dong was a little curious. When they met this time, the primitive bestial nature in Abel's body didn't decrease, but increased. It seemed that he didn't deliberately suppress the monster in his body. Abel, did you use black water? Following Han Dong's question, the violent bestial nature emitted outside of his body was immediately suppressed back into his body, and then he nodded. Yes, but my usage is different from the norm. I didn't use the black water's distortion characteristics. It's purely an energy supplement. What else can I say? As far as Han Dong was concerned, before he figured out the source of the black water, or before he obtained high-quality black water, he personally wouldn't use this solution with the distortion property. After all, Han Dong's own distortion property was not bad at all. For individual distortion, Han Dong had his own plans and ideas. Black water was a special substance in Prometheus. Only a small amount was needed to cause a biological distortion. If one could control this distortion, they would be qualified to go to Shundu, but Abel's situation was very strange. It seemed that he used a large amount of black water, but his body didn't show any distortion reaction. The hidden monster in my body can eat the black water as food. Tell me the details. As long as the quality of the black water is good, it can be completely absorbed by my body, and it won't cause any distortion reaction. It can be transformed into an effect of awakening monster, making it show an excited state. Training in this state can quickly improve my physical fitness, as well as my synchronization rate with the monster. But this kind of training requires a high-intensity training partner. Is there one here? At this time, Abel was exuding a black aura. If one stood a little further away, one could even see a monster suspended in the air. Click, 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 his fingernails rubbed against each other as if he was eager to fight. Yes, Han Dong immediately contacted a white giant elder and asked him to arrange an open training ground for Abel. The alien with a solid shell, fast and agile, with both the ferocity of a beast and the wisdom of a human, was the best training partner. However much Abel wanted, the temple could provide, and he could freely choose the strength of the alien. The highest level of alien could be chosen as a training partner. Monster transformation? Abel can reach this level at this stage. Han Dong was also watching the battle from the side. He unexpectedly found that when Abel attacked, the black aura that originally floated on the surface of his body could turn into a fist claw on his hands, and it could easily tear the solid shell of the alien. This guy Abel looks like his winning rate has increased a lot. After exiting the training ground, Han Dong did not waste time and quickly pulled Miss Mary for joint training. While most of the team members were training hard, Dempus, on the other hand, had turned into a tourist. He leisurely wandered around the various floors of the Divine Temple or walked around the caves. When he was bored, he would lie down and sleep. He had no intention of training or integrating into the Divine Capital. Or rather, Demps himself did not care about the system settings in Shendu. He walked around leisurely like this, just thinking about problems. He was thinking about how to let Han Dong seize the world's power and become the new pharaoh. Chapter 949. Wangdu, Megalanry. The world developed the same technology tree as Han Dong's previous world, and it had fully entered the electronic information era. With the help of the Destiny Realm, The technology in Wangdu's world progressed extremely quickly. At the same time, some special technologies that conform to the conservation of energy were derived from the foundation of the main technology tree. Similar to the 13 royal knights of the Holy City, Wangdu also had a corresponding organization, abbreviated as High-Tech 10 Alliance, including the currently known Tesla Energy, Schrödinger Institute of Mechanics, Curie Chemical Industry, and Mineral Biotechnology, a total of 10 top companies that control core technology and core military power. Wangdu was completely opposed to the Great Expedition being carried out by the Holy City. Wangdu believed that human beings were in a period of rapid development. They only needed to conduct chain-type investigation missions and appropriate small-scale expeditions to eliminate the threat of the main city. There is no need to risk losing half of the core forces to carry out the so-called Great Expedition. The disadvantages outweighed the advantages. In their view, with the existence of the Destiny realm, the speed of human progress was faster than that of the hybrid demons. As long as the main city was not breached, sooner or later, the total combat power of human beings would be equal to or even higher than the hybrid demons. At that time, it would be the best time to launch a great expedition or even a world war to take back the territory. Now, all the people of Wangdu were holed up in the technology city they built. Similar to the Holy City, there was a distinction between the good and the bad within this national city. It was even worse than the Holy City. The lowest civilian area was strictly supervised by intelligent machines and even drones to strictly supervise the daily work and rest of every civilian. All aspects were strictly controlled. There was even a policy of eugenics to ensure that a sufficient number of engineers could be produced every year. At the same time, in the engineer area, in a computer building directly under the 10 Alliance Turing model, one of the managers here was soaking his body in a data pool, or in other words, buried in tens of millions of data cables. His body even appeared to be in a state of data dispersion. Turing Model Company, project manager and senior engineer, Ed Lewis. His rank and identity, if converted to the Holy City, was almost equivalent to the deputy commander of a team, one level lower than the commander-in-chief of the puppet guards like Night Charlie. However, this manager, Ed, was only 36 years old. 3 years ago, he had become a Tier 5 engineer, reaching an even higher level. It could be said that he was a genius with a bright future. At this moment, the special training in the turbulence of data was suddenly interrupted. It was because Ed felt a slight disturbance from world force in his consciousness. Who's causing trouble? He directly fused his body into the data cable and used the method of data transmission to send himself to the computer company closest to the entrance of Destiny. He then used the authority in his hands to check on Wangdu's team that had recently entered True Destiny. Soon, the two documents were handed back to Han Dong, the son of Tesla's boss and researcher Novikov from Mendel Biology. The former was almost impossible. Novikov, on the other hand, was rather suspicious. This guy was an engineer with a bad personality. According to the information recorded, there were more than 10 cases where he had directly caused the deaths of other human participants. The indirect incident must have been solved. Moreover, Prometheus corresponded to a Tier 4 level. As a Tier 5 engineer, he deliberately brought along low-level teammates, who were expensive androids, to lower the overall level to the world of Prometheus. It was obvious that he had been planning this for a long time. It involved the sovereignty of the world, but he didn't report to me in advance and directly went in to cause trouble. Interesting. Although I will be limited by the world when I return to Prometheus and my ability will be limited to Tier 5, it is not something that this kind of person can shake. After this matter is settled, I will personally visit the senior management of Mendel Biology and have a chat. That was right. Ed Lewis, who belonged to Turing Model, had another identity. He was the current pharaoh in the world of Prometheus. About 7 years ago, when he was still a Tier 4 engineer, he passed the identity assessment set by Shundu and squeezed out the former NPC pharaoh. He controlled the real node of the medium-sized world, Prometheus. Just by renting it out, he could earn a lot of points. This kind of real node was far more powerful than the ordinary node, Ghost Stories, that Han Dong once controlled. At the same time, it corresponded to a more complicated management mechanism and world rules. At the same time, the participant who controlled the real node would copy a second consciousness through the method of consciousness replication. Then the second consciousness will be merged with the power of the world and transmitted into the self-made body to create a management clone that was specially used to manage the node world. In this way, even if the main body left the Destiny world, the clone with the same consciousness could manage the operation of the world. The situation of Captain Malone was the same. In the Infernal world, there was always a clone that looked the same as Malone, but was red all over with goat hooves and demon horns. Currently, the current Pharaoh in Prometheus was Ed Lewis's Black Pharaoh consciousness. It was because of this that he was a special talent in Wangdu and enjoyed the highest level of training. After checking the participants' information, Ed immediately went to the Gate of Destiny. Similar to the Sacred City, the portal that symbolized the future of mankind was sealed in a special building and was managed by professionals. Wangdu built an underground fortress that could isolate all energy to seal, research, and manage the Gate of Destiny. There's not only one administrator, but a team of engineers that had gone through layers of selection and had the ability to control time and space. Manager Ed, the world node that you control has been detected to have a slight fluctuation, but it is far from enough to threaten your position. We have applied for a transmission channel to the bunker for you and will monitor the data fluctuations of the Prometheus world for you in real time. Once it is confirmed that your position may be in danger, we will inform you immediately. Okay, half a month passed. God's capital, Black Pyramid, because they returned from the Forbidden Zone and handed in enough white giant items. Han Dong's team accepted the permission and ceremony of the priests and became black slaves. The ability limit increased to 50%. You have reached the highest level of slaves in God's capital and are qualified to participate in the God's Chosen One examination. It is different from the promotion competition you have participated in. You can participate in the examination at any time. If you're ready, please register through the various organizations or directly go to the Black Pyramid and ask the priests if you want to participate in the God's Chosen One examination. We will arrange it for you as soon as possible. As the High Priest in charge, I will kindly remind you once. This examination is different from the promotion competition. There are almost no safety measures. You must be 1,000% prepared before you consider. Chapter 950. Due to Han Dong's recent excellent performance. The High Priest, Tutelaman, confirmed that Han Dong had a kind of potential that could push him to the position of Pharaoh. It was the same. Han Dong's request to bring his teammates to meet the High Priest in private was also approved. Because outsiders who wanted to enter the inner layer of the pyramid had to go through layers of tests and approvals. To avoid trouble, the High Priest proposed to meet in private in the civilian area of Luoyang. Fei's Raw Meat, a restaurant that served fresh food, all in private rooms. This restaurant was also the High Priest's favorite. As long as he had time to leave the Black Pyramid, he would come here for a meal. In the private room, Tutelaman alone ate 2 tons of lightly seasoned raw meat. The source of this raw meat was neither animals nor low-level slaves who came to Luoyang from outside. Instead, it was edible raw meat produced by professional meat cultivators through the Blackwater Raw Meat Cultivation Base, through the Blackwater Raw Meat Production Base. Not only was it delicious, but it could also supplement the individual's Blackwater needs. At the table, only Abel, who had a special constitution, ate with the High Priest. The others just quietly enjoyed this sumptuous feast. The taste is as good as ever. Next, let's get to the point. It's about the God's Chosen examination. Since the supervisor has explained the time of the examination to you, you can sign up at any time. You should be able to see the characteristics of the examination, right? It's not a centralized screening examination similar to the promotion competition, but a one-on-one special examination. That's right. The so-called Gods Chosen is a personal examination involving the gods. The Nine Pillars Company in Luoyang is mainly responsible for the design, regulation, and infusion of divine power. The Black Pyramid provides the examination space, and several of us high priests and pharaoh supervise the examination together. You will choose the corresponding examination god according to your own characteristics. The corresponding Nine Pillars Company will use the great god source they currently have, combined with the spatial specificity of the Black Pyramid, to create a special examination that suits the gods. Each god's corresponding examination method is different and has its own characteristics. At most, I can tell you the corresponding examination theme of the relevant god. The specific content of the examination has been sealed by the pharaoh. At this point, a piece of paper was handed to Han Dong. The names of the gods and their corresponding themes were recorded on it. R.A. Apophis, Battle of Seth, Yellow Sand, Osiris, Trial, Thoth, Intelligence Q&A. There were many gods in ancient Egypt, and the corresponding themes were also strange. However, Han Dong's purpose was very clear. He soon found the corresponding god's name and theme on the paper. Anubis, Journey of the Nine Gates. Journey of the Nine Gates. No wonder Blackpool said this when he saw my ability for the first time. It's related to Anubis God's Chosen One assessment. The high priest continued. In addition, before you take the test, you will need to participate in a basic test. After all, creating the test space required a lot of manpower and material resources. Black slaves who did not meet the requirements were not qualified to participate in the test. He only had 2 chances. If he failed, he would forever bear the title of a slave. You must be fully prepared before you participate in the test. At this time, the high priest's gaze turned to Han Dong. Anubis' Journey of the Nine Gates is relatively difficult. My suggestion is that you stay in the factory and practice in seclusion for a month. Generally speaking, the residents of Luoyang go from white slaves to black slaves and then participate in the God's Chosen One assessment, at least a year apart. There are even 10 or 20 years. High Priest Tutraman, I'm going to the pyramid tomorrow to do the basic test before the assessment. Speaking of preparation, Han Dong had been preparing for nearly half a month. After all, during the half a month when he was picking up trash to exchange for contribution points, Han Dong had been doing various combat exercises in the temple of the White Giant. You are in such a hurry. You won't run away as soon as you pass the God's Chosen One assessment, right? The high priest's words indirectly pointed out Han Dong's identity as a foreigner. Han Dong did not intend to hide it. After all, in a medium-sized world like Prometheus, there must be other participants here, and there must be quite a few of them. It was not surprising that the high priest, whose power was second only to the pharaoh, knew about the foreigners. Please don't worry, high priest. Since I said that I want to sit in this position, I will definitely wait until I finish this matter before I leave. The reason why I'm in such a hurry is because there are other foreigners in Luoyang, and they are in a competitive relationship with us. I have already prepared for the God's Chosen One assessment. Okay, come directly to the pyramid tomorrow. I will personally take you for the basic test. Thank you, High Priest. After the exchange, the High Priest quickly returned to the pyramid to deal with his own matters. At this time, Demps, who heard some clues, quickly asked, Nicholas, does the High Priest know that you want to take the Pharaoh's position? Is he reliable? Reliable. This High Priest Tutraman has tried many times to take the Pharaoh's position, but it ended in failure. He has accumulated a lot of resentment in his heart. That's good. If we can get the help of a high priest, we might be able to destroy him from the inside out. Let's talk about the matter at hand first. Since the assessment will be done in single-person mode, there will be no competition between teams. Everyone just needs to focus on the assessment, and you might be able to obtain unexpected rewards in the corresponding assessment scene. The team was already prepared and would depart together tomorrow. Dimps, how is the progress of Dragon City's team and Tesla's team? Dragon City's team is very resourceful. Their progress might be similar to ours, and they might even meet us in tomorrow's assessment. Tesla's team is slower, and they are still in the gray slave stage. Similar to our speed, how do they do it? It's the monk that you are worried about, Nicholas. I don't know what method he used, but he actually gained the trust of the Temple of Sun and established a deep connection. He led his team to help the Temple of Sun to deal with the dark energy from the underground. This kind of confrontation allows them to quickly accumulate contribution points. Dark energy from the underground? It should be related to the origin of the black water, or it could be a kind of negative energy caused by excessive use of the black water. As for what it is specifically, it is a secret within the pyramid. Even the Women's Federation can't find out. Underground, when I completely get rid of my slave status and return to my peak state, I will investigate it. I don't know what's going on in the Great Burial Area, but I hope that mummy can be of some use. Below, Han Dong would definitely investigate it. After all, the thing that was hidden under God's capital had caused the black vortex to sense it. The secret of God's capital, the origin of the black water, and the fate controller. If I can figure it all out, it might help me from the side and overthrow the Pharaoh's absolute rule. Chapter 9:51. The next morning, under the lead of the high priest, the entire team came to the open test area in the inner layer of the pyramid. The so-called benchmark test was divided into frowny face muscle, durability, agility, magic 4 tests. Only those who achieved a comprehensive score or an S level in one of the tests were eligible to apply for the God's Chosen One assessment from the pyramid. Just as the team came to the test area, the priest in charge of the Sun Temple brought another team here. When the two teams' vision met, each showed an incredible look. Most people thought that their team's speed was far beyond the average level and should be far ahead of the other teams, who knew that the progress of the two teams was exactly the same, and they even collided at the same time in the test area. Only Han Dong, Dimps, and the little monk Gu Su on the opposite side did not have much change in expression. However, the next test would not involve disputes of interests, so it did not matter if everyone bumped into each other here in advance. With the relationship established in the promotion competition, Han Dong stepped forward and shook hands with Gu Su, taking the initiative to express his friendly attitude. When the two reached out and shook hands, a kind of consciousness connection was established. Gu Su asked directly, Novikov's death and the total annihilation of the Allele team, is it related to you? Yes. I killed him at the critical moment. Otherwise, once Novikov's plan was realized, all of our teams would be in danger. What is his purpose? Using the perfect flesh of the alien, that is, the flesh of the alien god, to complete himself and complete the final breakthrough of the Level 5 engineer. With the help of Novikov's mythical contact, 12 trials, if he completes this great plan, even if we join forces, we will not be his opponent. Thank you very much. After today's test, let's talk in private. Are you free? Gu Su actually praised and thanked Han Dong for killing the Wangdu engineer, which surprised the latter. I'm free. In this way, the two of them each showed a kind smile and returned to the team. When Gu Su told his teammates about the contents of their conversation, everyone fell into a deeper state of shock. Even the usually reserved black-haired young man turned to look at the European youth who was walking back to the team. Gu Su continued, My original plan was to have them delay Novikov's progress as much as possible. Who would have thought that Novikov, whom I viewed as the biggest threat, would actually be taken care of by this group of people ahead of time? Since that's the case, it's normal for them to be on par with us in terms of progress. No wonder was zipping lost. This team of knights is very powerful, and the secret hidden in the team should be very amazing. We have to dig it out as much as possible. Captain, are we going to change the plan? When the test here is over, we'll have a private talk with them. If their goal doesn't conflict with ours, then we'll consider it. Since the two teams came to the testing area at the same time, they would be tested together. Muscle was a comprehensive assessment of an individual's strength. A fat creature with a big belly stood in the muscle testing area. The whole body was like an infinitely multiplying meatball, fat and huge, but the whole body could barely be classified as a human. Its whole body was covered with black lines, and its dark eyes were staring at the testers. Such a fat body was obviously caused by the high-level black water. Chief Meat Priest, Gute, is responsible for your muscle evaluation. Enter the testing area in turn and use pure physical strength to give the strongest blow to Priest Gute's body. He will give you an evaluation based on the level of your blow. The Dragon City team was a little hesitant. The first one to go was always at a disadvantage, and once their test results were surpassed by the people behind them, they would lose face. At this moment, a man in the Sacred City team walked out. It was Demps, who had been enjoying life in the Sacred City. Well, is this person strong? He's the first one to go? Just as the Dragon City team was completely focused on Dempus and thought that something strange was going to happen, Dempus suddenly appeared. Pop, the fat on the Chief Meat Priest body, didn't even show much signs of floating. Demps seemed to be very serious, but the punch he actually threw out felt soft and directly collapsed. Muscle E. With Demps's collapse, everyone no longer had any scruples, and the test began. These tests of basic attributes were not trump cards, and there was no need to deliberately hide it. Seeing Demps's performance was so trashy, the Dragon City team also wanted to take the opportunity to show the other party their power. Captain, I'll do it. The one who asked to come out was the Ordovician Jade of the Dragon City team, holding a heavy, three-tipped spear. She also had another identity in Dragon City, Valkyrie. Similar to the special organizations in the Sacred City like the Night Watchers and the Combat Nuns, only women with excellent close combat ability had the opportunity to obtain the title of Valkyrie. The heavy spear was behind her back. She showed a white arm with a suitable muscle outline. While accumulating power, a cyan dragon pattern appeared on her arm, and she threw out a punch. Like a cyan dragon hitting the surface of the fat, the airwaves rolled in the test area. The Chief Meat Priest, Guts fat rippled, and even took a step back. Muscle A+, so powerful. Now, with the 50% limit, she can actually throw out such a punch with her bare hands. Moreover, the real strength of this woman is not in her strength, but in the power of the cyan dragon entrenched in her body and the exquisite grasp of skills. Han Dong stared at the priest's fat body and drew out a spiral fist-shaped pit in the center of the body. It took a lot of effort to fill in the surrounding fat. Let me. Then, Abel moved. The dragon blood in his body was also activated, and a different dragon attribute was revealed. Ordovician Jade, who had just returned, was immediately interested. A Western evil dragon. I didn't expect there to be such a guy in this group of knights. He's quite cute. Although Ordovician Jade hated the knights who were related to the hybrid demons, when she saw Abel's white fur and beast ears, she was a little excited. Boom! This Abel threw a flying roundhouse kick. When the kick was about to hit the target, Abel's body was covered by a layer of black shadow, which even covered the dragon blood. This point was also caught by Gu Su the little monk. There is actually such a knight with such a physique and talent. He could develop into a captain, right? This team is really not simple. If this group of people is related to the hybrid demons, it is enough to prove that the Holy City has opened the city gate to the hybrid demons. Abel's test result was Muscle A. Due to the difference in knight ranks, 4th rank versus 1st rank, Abel still lost because he didn't have the talent to support it. The result was quite good. When Abel returned to the team with his beast ears drooping and his head hanging down, an arm was immediately placed on his shoulder. Leave it to me. Chapter 952. Muscle. He did not directly call it strength. Han Dong came to a conclusion after observing the test and the scores of the 3 people before him. Abel used the dragon's blood to give a roundhouse kick, and at the last moment, he fully unleashed his bestial nature. Strength should be higher than the opponent. The reason why the score is lower should be related to attack strength. That woman's grasp of the technique is quite exquisite, and the strength of the roundhouse kick is amazing. Chief Meat Priestess took a step back when she took the punch, not because she was shocked by the power, but because she deliberately stepped back to cushion the attack. Otherwise, she may be hurt. In this case, count. Yes. With 50% ability unsealed, the sacred blood flowing in his right arm could freely form a sacred sword. Is there any way to burst out the highest single point of damage in a single hit? Of course you have to use sacred sword. Are you sure you want to show sacred blood in front of this group of people? In Count's opinion, there is no need to fight so hard. You just need to get a more average score here. After all, physical strength is not your strong suit. My purpose is to let them see sacred blood and sacred sword. What do you want to do now? Nothing. From the conversation with the monk just now, I can basically determine the attitude of their team. They came to the world of Prometheus just to clear the destiny level, not with a purpose like Novikov. Using the psychological pressure of killing Novikov to give them, I will show my strength in the test to pave the way for the subsequent negotiations. Try to persuade them to leave the destiny event after completing the God's Chosen One test. Okay, but it's a bit difficult. That yellow woman's punch was quite powerful. Why don't you stay at the end and let me think about it? Okay, after Ordovician Jade's punch, strength A+. No one could surpass it. The black-haired young man in Dragon City's team, strength C, majored in the 5 elements, but the little girl strengthened her arm with soil and hit strength B-. Boom. Gusu's seemingly ordinary punch actually caused a huge commotion. He obtained the same result as Abel, a strength. At the moment when he swung his fist, Han Dong vaguely saw the shadow of the immovable king of hell. As for the 2 females in Han Dong's team, they performed well. Mia, Muscle B Meritus, Muscle A-, after getting the report card. Meritus showed an ugly expression and purposely whispered in Han Dong's ear, "I'm not good at strength. This kind of benchmark test has nothing to do with actual combat. Hurry up and go. Don't drag your feet. Quickly end this meaningless test." All right. Han Dong walked leisurely toward the priest, who was made of fat. "Count, are you ready? By the way, is your body really okay? As you wish. I spent a lot of effort to get the clown's body so that I can do whatever I want. I'm looking forward to your performance." In the temple, Count actually used Count's spine as the base of the blade. His behavior of building the scarlet machete surprised Han Dong and gave him a new view of Count. All right, his consciousness shifted. Crack, crack, crack. A strange sound of bones came from Han Dong's body. On one hand, Han Dong was in an unimaginably strange posture. His feet were firmly rooted to the ground, and he made a twist and bend. Twist, with the waist as a link, the body rotated 180 degrees. Lower waist. When the feet are fixed, the upper body is bent back so that the body is in the shape of an arch. After achieving the twist and bend, Han Dong's waist and abdomen became twisted due to the rotation, and his cheeks were almost stuck to the ground. Even his teammates had never seen such a strange posture. At the same time, the bones in his body were being replaced by strong and powerful tentacles. The twisting of the waist and abdomen was caused by the circling of the tentacles in his body, similar to the effect of a spring. At the same time, because Count took over the body, Han Dong's body showed a dark red color, and both his left and right arms were undergoing exaggerated changes. Holy blood plus G-virus plus tentacle isomerization. Bloodhound, a dark red and slightly swollen right arm was formed. The bloodhound's teeth were closely arranged on the surface of the fist. The mark of the holy sword appeared on the surface of the fist. The magic eye locked onto the target. Burst. Boom. Hundreds of tightly compressed tentacles were released at the same time. Feast. The dark red body rotated at a high speed and flew into the air. Like a dark red mad dog, it smashed down from the top and hit the head of the chief meat priest. Boom. The blood mist dispersed. The chief meat priest was surprised and was even forced to raise her hands to defend. A large number of wounds were torn on the hands used to block. Some were ordinary wounds caused by the canine teeth, and some are caused by the holy sword that penetrated the entire arm. It was the first time for the teammates to see such a crazy attack, giving all the body to Scarlet Count to control. Interesting. Demp smiled secretly. This kind of performance also caused the Dragon City team to be shocked to the max strength S-. When the results came out, the consciousness also changed back. Han Dong was quite satisfied with the results. Count's recent performance was obviously better than before. As a reward, Han Dong planned to wait until he went back to get some high-quality dog food for Count. Next was the endurance test. There was no need to go forward. The participants would be immersed in a pool that greatly increased the burden on the body. The evaluation was given by the duration. The moment the body sank into the pool, in order to prevent the strange liquid from invading the body, the burden on the body instantly increased by 10 times, and it was still increasing. Wow, Demps collapsed again. After only 5 seconds, he couldn't stand it anymore. Endurance, everyone's average standard was about 3 minutes. If they forced themselves to hold on, they might collapse or even leave hidden dangers, which was not good for the subsequent assessment. Most people didn't force themselves to hold on and left the pool before 4 minutes. The evaluation was between C and B. Only Ordovician Jade, Abel, and Han Dong continued to hold on. 7 minutes. Seeing Abel's forehead began to sweat, Han Dong hurriedly said, "It's about time. The assessment is the most important. Leave it to me." Although Abel didn't want to admit defeat, he listened to Han Dong very much. He folded his beast ears and used the remaining strength in his body to jump ashore. Han Dong didn't react at all. As the black vortex rotated on the surface of his body, the body's adaptability was quite terrifying. Moreover, Han Dong still had a large number of fruits on the talent tree to use. It could be said that the energy was endless. 15 minutes passed. Ordovician Jade was a little overwhelmed, but she didn't intend to admit defeat. She reduced the burden by taking off her coat. She only left a white cloth wrapped around her chest to cover her body. Because she took off her coat, a godlike tattoo of an azure dragon was exposed in front of everyone's eyes. It was over her shoulder and looked very domineering. But at 20 minutes, Ordovician Jade was still shaken. "Come up." Gusu's voice came. "It won't do you any good to hold on. Our goal is to pass the assessment." Ordovician Jade reluctantly chose to withdraw. Even so, she still got a Endurance A+ evaluation. As for Han Dong, who was the last to get ashore, he got a Endurance S- again. Gusu knew very well why Han Dong wanted to be first in every test, but he was also very surprised by the strength of Han Dong's foundation. "He seems to be stronger than when I first met him in the dream. He has completely integrated himself into the life in Shandu. Has he grown? What a terrifying adaptability and growth." Agility test, tester, long-arm priest, Zahalid, a strange priest with a tall and thin body and more than 10 arms. His head was covered with black hair, which made him look creepy. They went to the test area in order and dodged the attacks launched by the tester. Once hit, they were out. Demps decisively went up first and acted as the test subject, so that the two teams could see the priest's movements clearly. As expected of the man who was known to be the worst, he was hit in less than 10 seconds and was sent flying out of the test area. Agility, then the two teams started the test one after another. Ordovician Jade wasn't good at this test, so she only got Agility B-. It was worth mentioning that Mia and Meritus got Agility A+ and Agility A+, respectively. After that, a certain black-haired young man who had caught Han Dongyo's attention displayed an astonishing reaction speed and got Agility S- in one fell swoop. Moreover, he was only disqualified because his elbow had brushed past his opponent. His expression was slightly regretful, as if he didn't perform well. When a black-haired young man returned to the team, Ordovician Jade put one hand on his shoulder and looked at Han Dong. She was sure that Han Dong couldn't do well in the agility test. "Nicholas, do you want me to do it?" Count suggested. Do you have 100% chance of getting an S grade? Not really. Then I'll do it. When Han Dong stepped into the test area, the scene of his battle with Novikov suddenly appeared in his mind. Novikov's complete body with 10 arms was somewhat similar to the tester in front of him. Thinking of this, Han Dong actually imitated Novikov's standing posture. He put his left foot behind his right foot and tiptoed slightly. His arms were straightened and spread out, and the corresponding 5 fingers were also fully spread out. His overall posture was like a cross, as if he was showing his body to the tester. At this moment, an aberration occurred, with the small magic eye between the eyebrows as the theme. Under the mixture of the magic eye and the G-virus, eyes of different sizes quickly grew from all parts of Han Dong's body, and the number was as many as 4 digits. Perception fully activated. According to Han Dong's observation, the tester's speed was only fast. The main difficulty was the omnidirectional blockade given by the multiple arms. Only by interpreting the only escape route in advance could he avoid all the attacks. The agility test not only tested speed, but also the agility of the mind. Through the magic eye all over the body to capture the movements of all directions, the brain would perform the relevant simulation to obtain the best escape route. This person is so weird. The black-haired young man, who didn't like to talk much, stared at Han Dong in the test area, who was neither fast nor slow, but could perfectly dodge every attack, and gave an evaluation for the first time. After the test, Han Dong got the same result as the black-haired young man. Agility S-, the last item. Magic power test. The tester was required to inject their magic power into a fleshy magic pot produced from the Black Pyramid. This pot could store a large amount of magic power and was a necessity for the priest to go out for long-term exploration. Like before, Dimpus went up first to pull down the first person. He reached out and placed his hand on the surface of the heart-shaped container. Magic element activation, pure demonic transformation. Not only that, Dimps deliberately used the power that was unsealed not long ago, a kind of energy that originated from the king. A kind of magic power with willpower was poured into the container. Boom! The priest in charge of the test project widened his eyes and couldn't believe what he saw in front of him. The fleshy magic pot exploded. Even he couldn't do this himself. In contrast to before, Dimps directly gave an unsurpassable result, frowny face magic power S+. Chapter 9:53. According to the previously announced test requirements, there were 2 ways to pass the test. Either the overall score reached the passing line, B, or one of the scores reached the pinnacle, which was S. Dimps chose the latter way from the beginning. His idea was the same as Han Dong's. He intended to use the test as an opportunity to give the Dragon City team a certain amount of deterrence to facilitate the follow-up negotiations. Obviously, Dimps's deterrence was more direct than Han Dong's. In the early test, all of them were. When the Dragon City team mistakenly thought that Dimps was the bottom support member of the team. In the magic test, he instantly broke out and directly obtained an incredible S+ rating. Even Gu Su showed a look of surprise, expressing his incomprehension of Dimps. After all, the magic power that just broke out was far more than a first-stage person by several times, even more than 10 times. Han Dong's omnipotence and Dimps's magic power max had already achieved results. The idea of not wanting to have a conflict with the other side and passing the test as smoothly as possible had slowly formed in Gu Su's heart. Little brother is so amazing. The youngest girl in the Dragon City team stared straight at the British boy who slowly walked out of the test area. In fact, as a 4th-stage warrior, she was about the same age as Dimps. The 5 elements and magic belonged to the same category. It was the first time she had seen such a powerful peer. The magic power he showed was so pure and powerful. Of course, it was also because Dimps had a special magician's temperament and handsome appearance. When Dimps returned to the team, Han Dong lightly punched him in the chest and sent a message with his eyes. Good cooperation. This time, the Dragon City team's state of mind should have changed a lot. Leave the follow-up negotiations to me. Dimps nodded and silently retreated to the back of the team. Meritus couldn't help but look at Dimps. At that moment, she felt a kind of suppression on the identity level and muttered, "New king." The test continued. It was worth noting that although Dimps's results could not be surpassed, there were also two S-level players in the Dragon City team. The girl proficient in the 5 elements was evaluated as Magic S, and the little monk Gu Su was evaluated as Magic S-. Of course, Han Dong wasn't bad either. Meritus injected a ball of pure water containing the atavistic origin into the tank and also received the Magic S evaluation. At first, Meritus was not interested in this kind of test. She only wanted to conserve her energy to participate in the God's Chosen One's test and try to gain some understanding of the myth in the test. However, Dimps's performance just now had provoked her. TSK, how boring. Meritus had a bored expression on her face since she failed to obtain an S+ evaluation. The last one was Han Dong, who was rather relaxed. Since Dimps has already shown his strength, I don't need to work too hard. Han Dong was essentially a mystic scholar, and magic was what he was best at. He didn't need to use any special tricks. He gently attached the mummy's arm to the surface of the magic tank container. With the injection of the black sand of death, the mythical contact Anubis carried between the grains of sand also gave Han Dong a Magic S- evaluation. In this way, Han Dong achieved the feat of quad omnipotence. Throughout the history of God's capital, there were only a single-digit number of black slaves who could obtain an S-level evaluation in all 4 tests. Of course, the above was just the test data with a certain bias. In actual combat, it was impossible to obtain the opportunity to prepare in advance, accumulate power, and so on. For example, the crazy feast that Han Dong released in the strength test was an attack that Count came up with on the spur of the moment. It was difficult to use in actual combat, and it took half a minute just to twist the body. However, perhaps after a later revision and repeated use, this move may be used in actual combat. The benchmark test was over. Congratulations, you have all passed the benchmark test. A priest assistant will lead you to a separate compartment for the selection of the gods for the assessment. Once confirmed, your choice cannot be changed. The corresponding 9 Pillars Company and the Black Pyramid will also carry out the development and layout of the assessment scene. It is estimated that it will take a week. Before notifying you, please prepare for the assessment. It is recommended that you take a rest. A good mental state for the assessment is better than a week of special training. Everyone chose the assessment that matched their attributes one after another and left the pyramid area. The next step was to wait. Because of the initial agreement between the 2 captains, the 2 teams agreed to meet in a bar in the civilian area. This time the discussion involved the handling of the relationship between the 2 teams and the later trend of the incident, which was quite important. In order to avoid special situations and strengthen the deterrence during the talk, Han Dong came up with a good idea. "Miss Mary, how about sitting on my lap?" Okay. In Meritus's values, overlapping behaviors between creatures was normal, not to mention that Han Dong's name was written in her small notebook. In this way, Meritus could be prevented from making provocative remarks or releasing pollution during the conversation. At the same time, letting an atavistic body sit on his lap, a special deterrent directly made the Dragon City group speechless. Mia became more sensible and seemed to know Han Dong's purpose for doing this. She just gently leaned on the other side of Han Dong. In this way, the first private negotiation between the 2 teams began. A mutual introduction was indispensable. It also allowed Han Dong to officially know the entire Dragon City team. It was similar to the Holy City's 13 Royal Knights and Wangdu's high-tech 10 groups. Dragon City also had similar organizations that gathered the same type of warriors, known as Organization or 11 Sects. Rank 4 Warrior, Goose Su Organization, Titanium Temple. Rank 4 Warrior, Ordovician Jade Organization, Weapon Tower. Rank 4 warrior, Shaoqing, organization. Mysterious pavilion. Rank 3 warrior, Zhou Miaoyu, Miao Miao, organization. 5 elements palace. After the self-introduction, they directly cut to the topic of the meeting, which was, what is the ultimate purpose of participating in the Fate event? Gusu seemed to have thought about something and first stated the purpose of his team. We are not participants with a purpose like Novikov. We did not use any cards of fate and just followed the randomness of fate to come to Prometheus. The purpose is the most conventional way to clear the level. On the basis of ensuring that we meet the requirements of clearing the level, we try to hide the treasure chest or trigger some kind of adventure. If possible, we naturally want to pursue the ultimate reward. Han Dong hugged the atavistic body, hybrid demon, with one hand and placed the other on the table. Da-da-da, his 5 fingers tapped on the table rhythmically as he spoke in standard Mandarin. Hiss, the ultimate treasure? I have some key clues in my hands that may be related to the ultimate treasure. If you don't mind the hybrid demon label on us, how about we cooperate? We can also share more of the ultimate treasure with you. Chapter 954. Cooperation. Dragon City Team. Demon Slaying Crowd. Their comprehensive combat power was similar to Tesla's particle radiation team, but in Han Dong's view, their functionality was higher. Moreover, as the team leader, Gu Su's strength was still unknown. If they could make use of the foreshadowing to form an alliance with Dragon City, it would be extremely beneficial to Han Dong's plan. The final treasure in the movie, Prometheus, was at most an epic-grade equipment. Compared to Han Dong's ultimate goal, an epic-grade equipment may be precious, but it was nothing. However, Han Dong's identity as a hybrid demon made it difficult for him to do so. The original intention of the demon-slaying crowd was to kill all the hybrid demons in the world. Even if Han Dong had proven his identity as a knight, Meritus and the team was a hybrid demon. Once they formed an alliance, it meant forming a team with the hybrid demons. Gu Su did not agree to Han Dong's alliance proposal, but asked, "First, tell me your purpose?" "Yes." Han Dong slightly moved the arm that hugged Meritus, making her face the people of Dragon City. "We and Miss Mary happen to be involved in the Gate of Destiny at the same time due to the space disturbance, and were forced to participate in this event as a team. At the beginning, the hostile relationship was difficult to eliminate, and Miss Mary belonged to the rare atavistic body, and her level was higher than us, so she was not willing to cooperate with us. But considering the danger of true destiny, we were forced to cooperate. At the beginning, we did not have any special purpose. We just wanted to meet the basic requirements and quickly leave the realm of destiny." Speaking until here, Meritus deliberately looked at Han Dong, showing a fierce face, but quickly changed her expression. Han Dong continued. "After a period of time together, as well as the ability suppression, setting and shun, Miss Mary slowly began to accept us, and also became curious about the world of Prometheus. After I occasionally came into contact with some of the secrets of the lower end of Luoyang, we also reached an agreement to dig deeper into the secrets of Luoyang. If we could find something good, we would distribute it fairly according to the compatibility. That is our goal. We were also forced to get involved and randomly assigned to this world, unlike Novikov, who had planned this for a long time." Han Dong deliberately threw out the keyword lower end of Shundu. It could not only strengthen the persuasiveness of his own purpose, but also arouse the curiosity of the Dragon City team. After all, they had lived in the holy capital for a long time and had even fought against the dark power that seeped out from below. They must know some secrets. Gusu nodded. Let me think about it." At this time, Han Dong and Dempsey's performance in the testing area played a role. Atavistic body plus Almighty Han Dong plus Max Mana Demps tilted the balance. After some discussion within the team, they reached a consensus. "How about this? Let's establish a half agreement. Half. Since our goals are similar, let's set our goal at the lower end of Shundoom We will cooperate when the agreement takes effect, including the following God's chosen one assessment and the exploration of the lower end of Shundu. The reason why it's half is that I want to leave some room for us to retreat. When we successfully pass through the layers of guards and reach the lower end of Shundu, the cooperation agreement will be automatically terminated. If there are any treasures hidden below, we will rely on our own abilities. If the missions and items hidden below can be evenly distributed without too much conflict of interest, we can also choose to renew the agreement and continue to cooperate. According to Gu Su, the half agreement left room for both sides to retreat. It was better to say that Gu Su himself wanted to have room for retreat. However, Han Dong was already quite satisfied that the Dragon City team could put aside the problem of the hybrid demons and was willing to help each other to go underground. As for what would happen after they saw the truth of Shindu, it did not matter much what the outcome would be. At that time, the overall situation would have been set. Okay, the Destiny Realm had an agreement function. As long as there was no rule that forbade alliances, the participating teams could apply for agreement papers in the Destiny Realm. As long as the content of the agreement was written on the paper, both sides would take the initiative to put their handprints on the paper and the agreement would be established. Those who violated the agreement would be directly punished by the Destiny Realm. You have established a temporary agreement. Team B has the hybrid demon label. Once the agreement is signed, you'll be affected and some of the Destiny Realm's auxiliary functions will be immediately turned off. Do you want to sign the agreement? After receiving the system prompt, Gu Su did not hesitate and signed the agreement with Han Dong at the same time. The agreement was established. Han Dong quickly asked a more important question. What if there is a conflict of interest between us and the particle radiation team? How should we deal with it? Deal with it normally and eliminate them, but try not to kill them. Tesla and the others are not bad people. They're not the same as Novikov. More importantly, Tesla's identity is special. If something happens, Wangdu will be furious. Okay, then let's call it a day. After we pass the God's Chosen One test, we will discuss how to go to the bottom. I hope everyone can pass the test and go to the depths of the underground together to see the truth of Shandu. Then we'll go back first. About 10 minutes after Team Dragon City left, there was a burst of crazy laughter in the private room of the bar. Ha ha ha, onto the surprised gaze of his teammates. Han Dong pinched his cheek with one hand and tried to suppress the crazy laughter that kept overflowing. Because this kind of crazy laughter more or less had the characteristics of the clown virus. The whole atmosphere of the bar was stirred up, and the laughter resounded in the street. Team Dragon City finally made this difficult move. Although it was still a little unstable, the agreement between the two teams was enough to set the overall situation. Everything is almost set up. The next step is very important. I don't know what kind of opportunity will come in the God's Chosen One test. I hope it can make my mythical contact sublimate. A week passed. Han Dong learned from the High Priest that Tesla and others had also reached the Black Slave level. They passed the test and signed up for the test about 5 days later than them. During this week, Han Dong was not idle. He threw the more useful John Spine to the alien engineer in the White Giant Temple for processing. The quality was upgraded and became John Spine Alien version. Just when his teammates received the ready for the test message one by one, Han Dong did not respond. Han Dong contacted the High Priest to ask, but the latter just asked Han Dong to wait patiently. The reason why it took so long was because the Journey of the Nine Gates was special and very few people chose it. This kind of test involved the realm of death and was too dangerous. Until they waited for another 3 days. Han Dong, who was reading in the Pyramid Library, smelled the smell of death. Black water with the attribute of death overflowed from the floor of the library. He created a dog-headed messenger that looked like Anubis. It wore a golden necklace and held a black staff with a hook in its hand. The Journey of the Nine Gates is ready. Follow me. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.